right. Now I think I've got everything in order as far as, from the previous session and everything. Like I mentioned last time, and again, this was the abbreviated session, but like I mentioned last time, if there is something that I miss, or if you knew that something happened at a different time and I screw it up, by all means, just let me know. I'm gonna do my best to try to keep everything straight, but if I miss a detail or something, certainly point it out. It's complicated enough, so don't be surprised if I do mess something up here or there. I mentioned this last time too, but just as a reminder, this arc will be repeating this hour over and over again, but we're not. It's not one real life game hour equals one narrative hour. We will be kind of fast forwarding as you guys have. Once you've successfully done something, essentially, if you want to return back to that point, if the loop fails and everybody dies and everything bad happens and you don't finish it, we can once the next loop starts, you can just kind of start there again, if that makes sense, without having to play through all of that all over again. With that said, where we left off, let me get to that. Yeah, so it was an abbreviated episode due to Ben and Becky's technical problems, but you guys woke up in the dirt outside of Dry Gulch. You talked to Wallace. You talked him into letting you into the busted pickaxe, but you weren't able to kind of successfully get free of him. He's still escorting you, but you talked him into taking you into the busted pickaxe, which is the saloon in town. You guys, once you were inside, you each split up to talk to different people inside. Peter sat down for a quick game of blackjack with a cadre mage from the 4th Company, which is Peter's old company when he was part of the Imperial military. Peter, during this game, bet his beloved jar of bees, because he didn't have the currency of the town, which are these discs that are made of diamond. He didn't have any of that, so he bet his jar of bees, and won the hand, actually really well, actually. I think you ended at 21, didn't you, Sako?
Yeah, 21.
Yeah, so he beat the other 2 people at the table. The mage, the cadre mage that he was playing against was a man named Edwin, wearing a heavy jacket of the Dire Howls, which is the kind of name of his former compatriots. He didn't know Edwin, but this person was also a member of the same company that Peter belonged to. So anyways, he won 11 diamonds. There's called diamonds, but 11 of these coins in that hand, and that's basically where his kind of portion of that session had ended there. Navarra, you sat with an awkward teenage boy who was playing a guitar, a really dirty a kid that had a busted finger, who had been playing a guitar. You talked him into sitting with you at a table to ask some questions, and we didn't get too far into that, so we'll pick up there. We were still sitting with him. Ketis, you tried to warn Lily, the bar owner, platinum blonde, small girl that runs the bar there. You recognized that she was one of the people that was dead at the end of the loop inside the bank. You remember that?
Yeah, and she didn't seem to believe me, or she seemed to think I was weird when I tried to talk to her. So
well,
I
mean, you certainly can. Yeah, exactly. You can try to explain it in a different way, but what you were saying, she didn't quite understand, except that she knew you were being escorted by who is essentially the deputy or the law in town, which means you're already in a position that she has to be a little bit suspect of you, despite this being new visitors that they haven't seen in a while. But she definitely didn't accept your explanation and was a little bit wary of you and returned behind the bar, very confused and suspicious. But just then, though, as you guys were kind of about that point, two men in purple handkerchiefs around their necks entered the bar. They really were eyeing Wallace and kind of kept their distance, and then kind of moved around him and sat at the bar. And we left off at about 11:17 a.m. All right, let me get this changed out. Oops, not the right one. There we go. And let me share this map back to you guys, because you will be needing that. There you go. You should already have it downloaded anyways, but now you have it. Oh, and now Ben and Becky will be able to download images, like, immediately in books and things like that as needed. That'll be nice, too.
Yep.
Alright guys, so that's where we left off. Navarro, you are sitting with the awkward teenage kid who was playing a guitar. Ketis, you are standing next to Wallace inside the entrance to the saloon here. These two guys have just come in and sat down at the table, or sat down at the bar rather. And Peter, you just won your 11 diamonds and kind of rake them in and throw them into your pouch. So, what are we doing? What are you guys doing?
All right, the guys that came in with the, the purple guys, are they doing anything in particular, or are they just sit down and have a drink?
Roll a perception. Are you trying to be cautious about the way that you're looking at him? Or
I'm not.
just staring.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to. Yeah, I'm trying to be as sly as possible. Not
Okay.
so they don't see me staring at them.
Yeah, we'll just do it as a perception. That's fine. It's not really a sleight of hand, but we'll just use that roll as a decider whether or not you're stealthy enough for it.
All right.
Just a simple look rather than a direct stare kind of thing. You're without looking directly at them, you're kind of, just standing there politely next to Wallace and kind of, you're looking at your shoes every once in a while, just looking around the bar. This place is really humid, and the air in here is still, so it just feels like sticky. It's much warmer in here than it had been outside, and you kind of, because 17 minutes before you were outside as far as your body's concerned, you're still kind of adapting to the heat again inside this dome. So the place just feels a little sticky and gross. So you're, just kind of looking around a little bit in this kind of awkward feeling place, and carefully looking past them. You do notice that they are regularly looking back at Wallace, and they're trying to be sly about it the same way that you're trying to be, cautious about not staring directly at them. But they keep kind of, looking over their shoulders, and they both have grabbed mugs off of the counter there. There's no drink in them yet. Lily hasn't gotten them drinks, but they're kind of just sitting there, trying to look like they're not out of place. She doesn't seem to see anything strange about them. You get the impression from looking back and forth and around that they're just normal townsfolk, and she's used to seeing them. They're just normal day-to-day people for her. But they are eyeing Wallace very carefully.
And is Wallace paying much attention to them, or is he just talking to Lily or me or whatever?
He seems pretty indifferent, and he's getting impatient with you guys. His attention is on the three of you, and he is dissatisfied that the three of you split up like that when he was only planning on bringing you in to get you a drink and then taking you off to the sheriff's office.
Okay.
So despite him being just a massive pile of rocks with a little bird on his shoulder, you definitely are sensing some serious impatience coming from him.
Okay.
All right. Navarro? What are you doing?
I'm gonna ask him if he knows anything about what's her name, Hetty, and why they think she blew up the temple.
He is really cautious at first, and he's kind of said his guitar is not in his lap anymore since he moved over to the table with you. It's sitting down next to him, and he's just kind of got one hand against the strings, and he's kind of idly plucking at them. It's not loud, he's not playing it loud, but it's loud enough that you're hearing him pluck the strings. Like, this is what he does when he's nervous. Maybe he feels more comfortable when he's got his hand on it. So he's kind of idly strumming, finger against those and picking random strings, and he's not making eye contact with you. Roll a perception also on Navarro. He eyes still down. You're definitely getting the impression that this isn't him trying to be sly or trying to deceive you in any way. He's just very uncomfortable sitting, with an attractive woman that he's never met before. It's a stranger, and you asked him to sit down. Like, he's extremely uncomfortable, but it's not out of deceit. He's not meeting your eyes out of deceit. It's just that he's just awkward. So he's plucking at this guitar, and he's kind of carefully looking up every once in a while just to not be rude, but won't make eye contact, or won't keep eye contact rather. When you ask about Hetty, he says, she don't mean no harm. She's just, I don't know, she's a little loose in the head. That's all. She didn't do nothing. I don't think she blew up. I haven't been out there, but I don't think she blew it up. It just doesn't seem like Hetty to me.
I guess just ask him why the rest of the town think that she would have blown up the temple.
Well, that's what she does. She blows things up. She worked in the mines when the mines were still open, and that was her. I don't know, her job was blowing things up. So I don't know, when the temple fell apart, maybe they just assumed and didn't really think much about it. mean, the temple doesn't look blowed up to me. It just looks like it fell in, but, you know, like I said, I haven't been out there to really look at it, and I don't really know what I was looking for anyway.
Are there any other strange people around town that he's noticed, other than us since we walked in?
he kind of chuckles at that. He says, well, I mean, if you're looking for strange folk, I mean, you came to the right place. We got a lot of strange folk. I mean, we got, well, I guess you guys are new to town, but we got Mammy. She's, you know, in the hut out in the woods north of town, but she's about as strange as they come. She's what we call a woods witch around here. So when people need help, you know, if they got a kid that's sick, like when I was sick, when, you know, my mom went out there and she got a poultice to make me feel better. But, you know, when people need some direction on things, when they don't know what they should do, maybe if they should take a job or not, or things like that, they go and see Mammy, and she's always been a big help. She's a little strange for sure, you know, but if that's what you're looking for, she's probably the strangest we got. And he lifts his head up and he looks over towards Ketis and Wallace standing kind of near the entrance, and he says, and I mean, of course, there's Wallace there. I mean, he showed up a couple years ago. You know, I was really just a kid then, but, you know, I can't say it's probably real normal in most towns to have a big pile of rocks running around with a bird that talks. So, yeah, I mean, we got strange folk in spades out here.
Did he tell me anything about the sheriff?
Sheriff Isaac? I mean, he's a good man. I mean, he mostly keeps to himself. About the same time that Wallace showed up, he kind of took over as sheriff when Jack died. But he's you know, he does his best. He seems like he tries real hard to keep the town safe. Can't say I see him very much these days. He always seems to be off or busy or something. But, you know, Jack used to always be in town talking to folk, and, you know, just kind of lived his life in the middle of the town with all the people here. But, you know, Sheriff Isaac seems to kind of mostly live off on his own. But he seems like a good man. Any more questions for him?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay. We can come back to that if you do. So, what's Ketis doing? Oh, sorry, what's Peter doing, rather?
Alright, so I just won my hand at the card game.
Yeah,
so,
you just scraped up your 11 diamonds over to your side of the table, or throw them in your pouch, or whatever you're doing with them. Your jar of bees is still sitting there, just buzzing away. You notice that Edwin's eyes are, like, glued on it.
Well, I'll probably get up and excuse myself from the table and thank everyone for their time. I'll ask Edwin if he'd like to keep the jars of bees, if he likes.
He gives you kind of an incredulous look, kind of a little bit of a grin with one eyebrow turned up, a little bit of a smile. He says, a gift from one dire howl to another. I won't say no to that. And he stands up, and he you know, as you were standing up as well, to shake your hand, but he does so in the where your hand is rotated 45 degrees back, you know, in the way that more of a hand grasping rather than a handshake. Does that make sense? Am I explaining that well?
Kind of, yeah. I think I know what you mean.
Almost like the arm wrestling grasp, that kind of a grip.
Yes, the movie grip.
Yeah, exactly, like
Rambo.
yeah. Like I think that was Predator, where whatever the guy from I can't remember his name. Was it Carl Weathers that did that? I think it was Carl Weathers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, that one. So he kind of, you know, gives you a good, you know, solid shake. You definitely, even from your earlier roles, and that was something that Peter noticed in the you know, abbreviated session as well. That he definitely seems genuine. Doesn't seem like he's trying to be deceptive at all. He seems like an honest dude that is, from what little you've gathered, is apparently stuck here. But is at least, he may be former, but is at least had been a member of the Dire Howls as well, the 4th Company, 4th Mage Cadre. He says, "Well, it was good meeting you, though, Peter. I mean, sure, I'll keep this as a you know, measure of our friendship. But you come on back anytime. We'll play some more cards, or maybe we'll get a drink or something. How about that?"
That sounds good.
And he kind of sits back down. He's just got this big grin on his face, and he hasn't said anything, but he's kind of looking back to the other guy that's sitting at the table, the bald guy that's covered in scars, and has an anchor tattoo on his shoulder. So you're standing up. What are you doing?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up there. I didn't catch that.
So you stood up. You're standing in the bar there. What are you doing now that you've gotten up from the table?
All right, I'm going to excuse myself. I'm going to walk over to Wallace since he's visibly getting a little bit upset. And I'd like to address the bird on Wallace's shoulder. Or
Sure.
Wallace, I guess.
Yeah. I'm telling him.
All right. Pretty much noticing that you're kind of getting a little anxious here. Is there anything that we can do to help you out? Maybe if you like, we can go across the street to the general store and I could pick you up some bird seed or something. I'm addressing the bird directly.
He doesn't. There's no way to really tell if a bird is maybe chuckling, but you get the impression that maybe he would have, except that he's still irritated. He replies with, he says, well, I appreciate that, Peter, but really what we need to do is get back to the Sheriff Isaac's office. I'm a little uncomfortable, yeah, but it's not really you guys. I don't really think that you're here to do anything bad. It's just, we had a deal. We were coming in here to get a drink, and then you guys all split up, and, that makes me a little nervous being a man of the law.
Would it be all right if maybe we all go see Sheriff Isaac together?
Well, that's the idea. I mean, we need to go back to Sheriff Isaac's office. He's not there, or at least he wasn't there, half an hour ago when I was. But if he's there, great. If not, we'll go back there. You guys can just, hang out there, and I'll go and find him.
All right. Well, I'll let him know that I'm kind of ready to join him
Sure.
as soon as everyone else is ready. But I would like to kind of push just a little bit. Maybe I'd like to stop at the general store and take a look at a drink or something with my newfound winnings.
So we'll gather him up, and then you're going to need to give me kind of verbatim what it is that you're saying or doing to enact that, rather than just that you're trying to, because I'll need to know what kind of roles to make you make that kind of stuff. So if you're both, I guess, because Ketis and Peter are both standing next to Wallace, then presumably ready to go, unless there's something else Ketis wanted to do.
No, but on the way out, I'm going to tell Wallace to keep an eye on those guys in the purple because they look like trouble.
All right.
Tell them
Navarra.
they're going to try some shit when we leave.
Okay. Navarra still seated talking to the kid, or are you getting up and getting ready to leave with them? You've seen it from the corner, over the shoulder, basically, that they're kind of, it looks like they're getting ready to go.
No, I'll get up and go with him.
Okay. You notice that the briefest second, as soon as the kid realizes that you're standing up, he immediately yanks the guitar back up, head sinks back down, he's looking at his fingers while he's starting to pluck the strings. He was obviously extremely nervous and cautious with it. And was ready to kind of retreat back to his comfortable space of playing his guitar. But you get up and you were the furthest away, so you kind of walk your way past the table where Edwin and the other guy were sitting there that Peter was playing cards with, and they've just kind of started to throw cards back out on the table, going into playing in their next hand, the two of them. But you rejoin the other three. Wallace not yells, but kind of shouts a little bit over to Lily, who's behind the counter, who has started to get pour a couple of beers for the two guys in purple. He kind of shouts over to her, that he'll come back to check in on her later, when she's closing up or whatever. Now, what are you saying to Wallace about the guys?
No, I was just going to tell Wallace that watch when we leave, those two guys are going to try to cause some trouble. You wait.
Roll a it wouldn't be performance because you're telling the truth. I guess roll a persuasion.
Persuasion? Okay.
Yeah. You say that as he's talking to Lily, and you notice that the bird's head turns over towards the guys in purple, and they are looking at the time, because they have been kind of looking back and forth as cautiously as they can, trying not to give themselves away. But they are looking back over at Wallace as Wallace's, the bird looks over towards the two of them. And you see the stone face on Wallace move slightly. It's subtle. There isn't a lot of ambulatory features for the elemental portion of it, but there is what looks almost like a jaw set, like if it was a person, that the jaw kind of clench a little bit. That's kind of what it looks like. And then the bird kind of stares at them for a second, then looks back at you. It doesn't say anything, but you get the impression that it probably was going to. It just doesn't necessarily want to do so, in present company.
Okay.
It looked at you, and you kind of felt like it was gonna ask you a question about that, maybe asking, what are you talking about, or where are you getting that info, or something like that, but isn't, and you're kind of intuiting that maybe it's because these people are around. So kind of the bird looks back over towards Lily and nods at her, and she nods back. And then the Wallace turns around and starts to kind of corral you guys out of the saloon there. So you heading back out into the street?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you hear that stomp, stomp, stomp of this, massive elemental stomping on these, these wooden platform basically that's outside. You hear a little bit of a creak, almost like maybe it's, eventually this deck's gonna have to be replaced just from all this extra weight that's constantly pounding over it. So you guys are back outside. It is broiling. It is extremely warm, and there's just no wind. It is extremely uncomfortable. At least inside the saloon there were a couple of fans that were just spinning really lazily, but at least it was moving the air a little bit. And out here it's just dead, bone dry, and extremely way too hot, and just still and musky and what's the word I'm looking for? Humid and so on. But you're back outside. What are you guys doing? Wallace is starting to turn you to the right to head up towards the sheriff's office.
I'm going to ask Wallace if we can stop across the street at the general store to see if we can pick up a drink or something.
He says, I don't know that birds can sigh, but you're hearing a sound that sounds like a sigh coming from the bird. It says, that's what we were just in there for. You were supposed to, if you needed a drink, we were going in there so you could get a drink. Why would you need to go over to the general store? Roll up persuasion on Peter. Roll it with disadvantage, though. It was specifically for a drink. That was why that was the excuse you guys made to be able to go into the saloon first. So. You're supposed to roll it with this. No, you hit the -5, not the disadvantage. So go ahead and re-roll it, but this time hit the disadvantage one, the DIS button. That was actually still a really good roll, though. So, but the lowest would have been an 8. So you still would have had the 8 anyways out of the disadvantage. An 8, a 13, and a 19. Yeah, he doesn't look to be too convinced. He says that's it. He says, that you if you needed a drink, you were supposed to just, that's what we were in there for. You should have just gotten it while we were in there. He says, no, let's just head off to the sheriff's office. It's the agreement we made when we came into town. So, let's meet with Sheriff Isaac. You guys can, talk to him, and as long as he's okay with you walking around town, you can go get as many drinks as you want over at the general store. He says, that work?
That works. Let's go talk to Sheriff.
All right, so you guys are walking up the deck, this kind of covered porch, essentially, that goes along this whole street on both sides, and you're just walking along it in the north here, or on the east side of town, rather. Not in the direct sunlight, but it's still, still hot. And you kind of make your way up there. You pass another shop that's boarded up. Doesn't look like there's, anything open there until you get in front of the sheriff's office. And you guys were just here 35 minutes or so ago. You look over towards the clock tower on the as you guys are walking along. Looks like it's about 11:25. Maybe not. Let's call it 11:21ish. But basically, a few minutes have passed. But you could spend essentially 20 minutes or so between getting to the saloon and spending your time in there. So. But you guys step inside of the sheriff's office there. You step in, you see that there's a couple of jail cells there. One of them looks like one of the walls is a little bit busted up already. And inside that cell, you see this middle-aged woman just covered in soot head to toe, wearing overalls that were once blue but have been since faded and covered in so much dust and soot that hard to even necessarily differentiate what color they were, and a red and white checkered shirt under that. But she's kind of leaned over, almost laying down on this kind of wall embankment that's sticking out like a bench almost, just kind of resting on that. She looks over at you guys, but doesn't really react beyond that to you guys coming in. In fact, actually, it's a little bit strange almost because most of the people in town have reacted a little sharper to seeing you guys because they haven't seen many strangers, and she doesn't seem to really react too much beyond that. This is definitely Hetty, though. This is the same woman you met earlier, but she doesn't know you, of course, and she's just kind of leaned over a bit in there. But Wallace steps you guys inside. There's a big old desk with a giant ramshackled chair that's looks like it's been rebuilt numerous times, enough to maybe support Wallace's weight. you know, there's papers all over the desk. There's a couple that are pinned to the wall, and you guys have all kind of been stepped in. There's two windows, one that faces the street and the one that faces to the north. But he kind of, you know, he's blocking the doorway essentially there. He kind of looks in. You see the bird kind of look over to the side, check the desk, and, you know, looking around. He says, "Well, I don't see Sheriff Isaac here, so I'm going to need to go find him. And look, I know you guys are eager to get around town and, you know, and help. You mentioned you were looking for some kind of spear. That's weird to me. I got to say, it's weird, but, you know, that's not for me to decide. That's for Sheriff Isaac. But listen to me. I need you to you know, follow our agreement. You agreed that we would come back here and you would just kind of take it easy and sit still until we talk to Sheriff Isaac. So just please do that for me. Can you please just behave for a little bit? I know that sounds mean, but I got a town to protect."
All right, I guess so.
And he looks between Peter and Navarra.
Sure.
Sure thing.
He says, "All right, thank you." And you see the bird kind of almost shrug, like a, you know, like an appreciative movement. And the whole thing, this amalgamation between this bird and this elemental, kind of spin in place and steps back outside, out the door, and looks left, looks right down the street. You see the bird kind of looking both directions, where the elemental's head is not moving at all. And then it begins to cross the street and head off to the north, off to the right. So you hear kind of pow, 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 pow as it's kind of stomping through the dirt as it steps down into the road there. What are you guys doing?
Well, I'm gonna walk towards that that desk that had that alarmed key thing.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember? That's been a little while. Do you remember what was in there? It's okay if you don't. That's what I'm saying. Since it's been, you know, almost a month since you saw that.
I remember that there was some keys inside one of the drawers, but when I pulled it, an alarm went off.
Yeah, exactly.
That was mainly because Toki got in there.
Yep. Yeah, you tried to blame it on Toki, yeah.
Oh yeah, can't trust that cat. But I'd like to swing through to that desk and make an attempt to look for a way to disarm that alarm.
Okay. Do you have Toki out with you? Just as a side note.
Yeah, it's on my shoulder, perched.
Okay. All right. Roll an investigation for checking over the desk. Looking it over, you don't see anything mechanical that stands out to you. You basically look it over. You don't see, you know, the kinds of things you would expect to see if it was a mechanical trip, like if there was a spring or something like that was, you know, like you look under the drawer, you check under where the drawer is, where it slides back and forth, and you're not seeing a wire or anything that could be the trip. So you kind of, based on that and you know, your capabilities and recognizing kind of mechanical structure, that kind of stuff, it doesn't appear to be anything of a mechanical nature. So not like a trap that could be disarmed necessarily. It could be arcane in function though. And you've kind of assumed that it is, basically, because, you know, looking it over, you didn't see any kind of a speaker, you didn't see a connection to anything, and no wires or anything that would be tripped when you pull the drawer, so you're assuming that it's arcane.
Can I tell if it's something that I can subvert magically?
You would already know that you're familiar with these because they're simple enough spells. It's probably an alarm spell. Dispel alarm, A-L-A-R-M. It's probably that spell that is on the drawer itself, and you definitely know that, you know, if you were to do something like what's the word I'm looking for? Not disable magic. There's a spell for damn it, I can't remember the name. I'll have to find it. Sorry, but yeah, basically yes, you would be able to if you had that spell prepared. It is Dispel Magic, sorry, that's what I was looking for. It's not a very complicated spell. The alarm spell is relatively simple, but you would need something like Knock might do it, a couple of other spells that you're familiar with, to be able to open it without setting off the alarm.
Gotcha. I don't think I have that. I just have a Detect Magic.
I know you get access to Dispel Magic, but I don't think you have it prepared.
Yeah.
Well, My bracer has dispel magic. My bracer has dispel magic on it.
Does it?
Yep. Can I try it?
That's up to you. You can try anything you
What-
want. That's how this whole thing works, remember?
Yeah. What do you guys think? Want to take a chance on setting it off again?
Well, either that or I can use my level 3.
Well, might as well use my bracer because it'll recharge when we go to. You will save yourself a spell slot. It's just my bracer, and it'll recharge when we go back to the college anyway. So
Okay. So you're
I'm
gonna do
going to
that?
try to use that.
All right.
I'm going to attempt. Yeah.
So Peter, you're over there, kind of looking. You kind of climb onto this desk and look under there. You know, checking all the corners of it, making sure that there's no wires or anything like that. You've kind of figured out that this is an alarm spell. That you've kind of intuited it and explained that over to Ketis. Ketis remembers that he's got this stored, basically like a temporary magic item, essentially in his bracer, that he can use to dispel the alarm. So Ketis, you step over there, you look through the things on your bracer. It takes you a second to recognize which one it is because you don't use your bracer very often and you're not, super schooled in the different arcane runes and what each one means. So it takes you a minute to remember which one that Freggie put on there was the one for dispel. And for just the briefest moment, you almost hit the mending button, which would just fix the drawer as if it was broken. But then you remember, oh shit, it's not that one, it's this one, and you hit the other button instead, the other rune. And you kind of grab the handle to the drawer. Peter's kind of told you this is what you should do on how to use the dispel. So you grab the handle and you hit the rune on your bracer. And you don't feel anything at all, but Peter, roll an Arcana check. Actually, roll it with advantage too for Peter because it's such a low level spell. It's still fine, yeah, especially with your proficiency. So Ketis, you don't feel any change at all. There's no, you don't have a lot of sensitivity for the kind of arcane nature, the energies of what's around you. You may not necessarily, you didn't grow up with it like Peter did. So Peter, you immediately feel the kind of electricity in the air around the drawer immediately begin to fade. It feels like it worked. It looks like it's dispelled.
Sweet.
So what are you guys doing?
Check out the keys or whatever was in there, right?
You gonna pull the drawer open?
Yeah.
All right. So you slide the drawer open, and you're both standing close to it. Actually, what's Nybara doing at this moment?
I guess I'm gonna try to talk to Hetty.
Okay. So they're opening the drawer. We'll switch back to that in just a second. You guys, Ketis and Peter, both standing there by the drawer, kind of tense for a second, just in case maybe there was something else in there. Maybe there's another, layer to this that Peter didn't see. Maybe there was something mechanical on the inside. But the drawer slides open. It's still silent. You both, have that kind of tense moment. You let your breath go, where you were holding your breath for a second, and you're just looking into a drawer that is completely empty. This whole office is pretty messy. This drawer is completely empty, but there's just a ring of keys in the middle of it. The keys are a little old, a little bit rusty, but yeah, there's a ring of keys in there. So you'll grab that. Navarro, what's that conversation look like? So Hetty is still leaned back and kind of eyeing you out of the corner of her eye. Like you're standing 6 feet away from her, and she won't look at you. Like she'll look like out of the corner of her eye, she'll look at you, which is super suspicious, and then look back like to the dirt on the ground, and then she'll kind of look back up at you a half a second later and keep doing that.
I guess just tell her that I heard around town that she blew up a temple.
She shouts out kind of in the middle of your sentence there before you even finish. She says, "You a gerblin?
What?
You look like, I bet you a gerblin, aren't you? You gerblin."
I have no idea what that is.
She says that.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'm a gerblin.
You look like a gerblin. I ain't never seen no gerblin, but you look like a gerblin.
Well, if you've never seen one, then how would you know that I look like one?
You got them ears. Look at them ears. Them gerblin ears.
Nope, those are elf ears.
Elf gerblin. It's all the same to me. I didn't blow up no temple.
Well, if you didn't blow up a temple, then who did? And why did you get blamed for it?
Everybody in town says, Hetty, you got brains of dirt. I didn't blow up no temple. Sure shit, I blow things up. Don't get me wrong. That's what I do. I like to blow up the earth and get them diamonds out, but I didn't blow up no temple.
Well, do you have any idea who might have blown up the temple and tried to blame it on you?
But that ain't me. I don't care. There's plenty of folk in town could have blown that up. Just because I like blowing things up, they say it's me, but Hetty didn't do that. Hetty, they all say I got nothing for brains, but I got them. I'm smart. I don't blow up no temple.
What sort of temple is it? Or
Kind
was it?
sort of temple while people go and I don't know, they pray, whatever shit they do. I don't know. I pray to the dirt.
So you've never been to this temple?
Oh, I've been there. I mean, I look at the place. If I was gonna blow a place up, all right, maybe I shouldn't say this. If I was gonna blow a place up, it would be that place. I didn't do it. I didn't blow up no temple.
Do you know whose temple it is? Like who they pray to?
Israfel, the three.
Right. And that would be the 3 from the statue in town, right?
So I'm gonna type to you what she said. That's what she said, and she said that as if it's one name of one deity of some kind. Was the kind of the inference you got from the way that she said it sounded like that's the name. That whole thing is the name. And she says that, but it didn't sound like she was talking about the 3 outside. Doesn't seem like it's. You can't say for sure. I mean, you could ask more, but it didn't sound like that was connected.
Let's just ask her who that is.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm sending a text message here. She says, I don't know. I'm not much religious, right? And what would no Gerblin care anyway? You got your own. You leave ours alone.
I'm just curious as to, what's going on at this temple that people would think you'd want to blow it up for.
Sure, I don't know. I'm just stuck in here because they didn't listen to me. They don't think much of old Hetty. She has sat up by now and is looking at the 3 of you. Like, she's looking at Nivara, but at the other 2 who are over by the desk drawer. Go ahead, Peter.
Oh, I'm sorry. While she's talking, can I look over to Ketis and kind of make a head nod that we should maybe go outside to the back of the building?
Yeah, you guys are standing next to each other. I mean, you could even talk next to each other as long as you were keeping it quiet without Nivara and Hetty hearing. I mean, you were both standing next to each other and kind of saw these keys. Did one of you take the keys, by the way?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna whisper over to Ketis. I'll whisper over, hey, let's head on to the back of this place, because if memory serves correct, this thing's gonna blow in just a little bit.
All right, then let's go. And is Navarro still talking to Hetty?
Yes, and while you guys are kind of talking back and forth, and you've seen that Hetty is looking back between you 2 and back at Nivara, Hetty, she calls over to you. She says, "And what are you Gerblins doing over there? Wallace ain't gonna like you going through his desk."
We're just doing Gerblin things, and we're gonna have to excuse ourselves now. It's nice to meet you, Hetty.
As soon as
Come on, Navarro, let's go.
as soon as you say that you're doing Gerblin things, she jumps up, and you see this cloud of puffed up soot just come off of her as soon as she jumps up, because it was like almost a violent motion. And she slaps her hands on her. She says, "I knew y'all was Gerblins." And she jumps up and starts shouting out the doorway, Wallace, these Gerblins is going through your desk." Like, as loud as she can. It's very loud in here, but you don't hear anything from the outside necessarily, so you don't necessarily know that that anybody was alerted, let's say. You're not hearing a reaction from outside, but she is shouting out the doorway, and she has run over to the bars directly in front of Nivara, and is holding the bars and kind of shaking them back and forth and shouting. What are you guys doing?
Good job.
While she's yelling and freaking out, can I try and talk some sense into her real quick?
Sure. What are you saying?
But like, look, if you can keep things quiet, in about 30 minutes to an hour, I've got a whole bag of root beer barrels I can get you. Can we just keep this between us?
When you say that, her jaw starts to go slack, and she stands still for a second. She stands up straight. This is the first time you've seen her actually standing up straight, and still holding the bars, but you see her hands kind of begin to open up a little bit. She goes, "Root beer barrels? I don't know, man. You look like 2 Gerblins in a coat. I can't trust you." And she starts screaming back out again through the doorway. You can go roll a persuasion. she had accused you earlier, by the way, of being 6 Gerblins, each of you being one Gerblin stacked on another's shoulder, and wearing, clothes, like wearing clothes over it, like the way that you'd see kids trying to sneak into a movie. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what she said you guys were earlier. But she isn't shouting with as much fervor as she had been previously. And she kind of is. She seems like she's calming down a little bit, but she's definitely very loose in the head. And she's not kind of rattling the bars so hard, that kind of stuff. And you've all. Are you trying to head out? You're going out the door?
Yeah, I was just trying to calm her down a little bit, trying to bribe her with some root beer barrels and walk out the door.
She says, okay, then as you guys are kind of heading towards the door and you've said that to her, she whispers to you, but, it's still, obviously, all of you can hear, and she doesn't really necessarily know a volume level for a whisper very well, so it's still plenty loud. She's just, she doesn't really understand the difference, I guess. She says, if you're no Gerblin, you bring me them root beer barrels and we'll just call it good. I won't tell no Wallace about this, okay?
Sounds good. Give me about an hour.
And you see that she reaches down into a pocket and brings her hand back up and pops something in her mouth, and she's just sitting there kind of eyeing you guys very warily as you step out the front door. So you've stepped out the front now. You're looking down the street. You don't see anybody. Let's see. Okay. So looking down the street, you do see, after like half a second of you guys kind of stepping out and kind of your eyes beginning to adjust to the brightness again, you see, you hear a commotion from the south, and then you hear a thwop, like a very particular noise that Peter, you immediately recognize as some kind of an arcane missile, but Ketis and Evar, you don't recognize the sound of, but something getting hit by an arcane missile of some kind, and then you see one of the guys in the purple kerchief get thrown out, just basically flinging himself out the front of the saloon doors. The Batwing doors just kind of fly open, and he goes sailing out. He's running. He's still on his feet, but he goes kind of running off the edge of the deck of that kind of porch kind of a thing, and runs a good 4 or 5 feet before landing face first, flat on the ground in the dirt. And he's not dead. He's still moving. He just looks like he's probably in some pain, but laying in the dirt and a quarter of the way through the middle of the road. What are you guys doing?
Go over and see what's going on.
So where are you going?
Go see what was hitting those guys. Did you say that they were getting hit with those missiles? That was what was knocking them out?
That was back at the saloon. So from the previous loop, you remember that So from the previous loop, you guys were all still in the jail, in the sheriff's office, and you looked outside and saw that same thing happen. It just happened earlier. So when you saw it last time, it had happened around 11:15. Right now, you know what? I don't want to give you guys the time too much. I want you to be kind of aware of it yourselves. But let's just say that it's definitely after that. It was when you looked at the clock earlier, it was 11:21, and you just spent a few minutes inside the jail. So anyways, this is the same thing that apparently had happened earlier. It just happened about 11:15 last time. This time, you essentially prevented that from happening at the time that it did because you were in the saloon at the time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, then I'll go over and see if Wallace is, and tell him what I tell you. I was right, wasn't I?
Well, Wallace wasn't in there the last time. The last time when this happened, he was over at the general store, and you saw him run from the general store over to the saloon. And sure enough, as you guys are standing there watching, that this person just got thrown out, half a second later, you see Wallace come storming out of the front of the general store towards the middle of the road. He kind of stomps his way out there. He does look over and see you guys are standing in front of the jail. The bird looks your direction, which is, from that distance, you may not be able to pick out perfectly, but you get the impression for sure that he's looking your direction. But he storms over towards the one that's in the middle of the road. You see him kind of look down, the head of the elemental look down towards it, but doesn't do anything to try to interact with the ruffian that is now in the middle of the road, and storms its way into all the way into the saloon. and as you guys are watching, you know, if you're not moving or doing anything else, 3 seconds later, you see another one get thrown out, and this time by Wallace's hand, by you know, a massive earthen hand just holding the back of its shirt and flinging it to where it goes. This other guy goes sailing through the air this time, not his own feet, and landing close to the other guy in the dirt. This one is not moving. It looks like maybe he's unconscious, but doesn't appear to be bloodied or dead or anything like that. But they're now 2 dudes in purple kerchiefs laying flat in the middle of the road. What are you guys doing?
Hey, Ketis, you want to split up? You want to check them out?
Yeah.
They're right next to each other, so I mean, splitting up wouldn't even be needed. They're 5 feet apart, so enough space that, you know, you could all go if that was your intent.
All right, let's go check them out.
I was thinking of swinging to the back of the jail because someone blows up the back of the jail, so I want to see what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that was probably, I didn't describe it very well. You know what? Well, that's fine. We'll go ahead, because maybe that's what it looked like to Peter when he was in the moment, because I didn't describe it as well as I should have the first loop, you know, 4 weeks ago now. So Peter, you're going around to the back of the jail?
Yeah, just gonna exit the jail, take a right, run around the back of it.
Sure. Roll a stealth check on Peter. You do not feel... stealth would generally be in the tower, by the way, just because you wouldn't necessarily know if you're seen or not, or basically, in general, stealth goes in the tower. Stealth and most of the social skills go in the tower, but it's no big deal here. But you are pretty damn sure that Wallace still saw you kind of slip around the corner. There wasn't anything for you to hide behind or for you to kind of, you know, sneak around. So you're pretty sure that if he was looking this way, Wallace saw you go around this corner. But it doesn't stop you. You can still go around the corner. You just weren't necessarily as hidden as you would like. But you kind of sneak your way around the back to head around to the back of the jail. Sure enough, around the back side of the jail, where you saw the kind of damaged portion of the wall. Just this place are all like old stucco. You know, it seems like it crumbled relatively easily, and there is a big crack that runs up from the ground up about halfway through the height of the wall in the back of the jail, and it does look like it's about in the spot where the jail cell that Hetty is in. It looks like the other side of that would be her wall, basically. But you're out there looking at this. What are Ketis and Navarre doing? Petus.
Used to go check out the dudes in purple.
Yeah.
Okay. As you are, because this is a little bit further of a walk, it's down a little further. You're almost there. You're about 3/4 of the way to them. Wallace is still standing in the doorway, and it sounds like he's talking to Lily or someone inside. And you notice that there's a couple faces in the window. It's hard to tell from the dirt, but you're presuming it's probably Edwin, maybe the boy that was playing a guitar. But there's a couple faces in the window that are looking out towards the 2 guys in the street. But you're about 3/4 of the way to the guys in the street. You see there's a little bit of blood coming out of the mouth of the one that's unconscious, the one that's not moving. The other one is just groaning and is kind of slowly trying to lift himself up. He's kind of put both hands underneath him and started to almost push up, kind of a shape, basically to lift himself up, and he's shaking his head. He's the one that just got blasted by whatever that arcane missile was. But neither appear to be dead. I mean, you can, even the unconscious one, you see that it's breathing from here. But as you're, about 3/4 of the way there, though, there is a very heavy rumble underfoot. Both of you roll, actually, all 3 of you roll a dex save. The ground begins to just shake violently underneath you, so much so that Peter, you can roll it with advantage actually because you were standing still. But Ketis and Navarre, because you guys were moving. So for the there we go. Okay. Peter, you were kind of hand against the wall looking at this crack anyways, and you feel the ground begin to shake, but you just kind of steady yourself, and you don't fall or anything. You just feel this heavy earthquake of something moving, something big that feels like there's something massive moving underneath the ground, very far down. That's what it feels like. But Ketis, you're as you're kind of mid-step, basically, this shaking happens, and it kind of collapses you to one side. You don't fall all the way down, but you kind of collapse to one knee. You collapse down on your left knee with your left hand against the dirt to kind of steady yourself to keep from falling the whole way down. And the guy that is in front of you, the closer one, that is shaking his head and just got blasted, kind of looks up and looks around. He looks even more disconcerted and confused by everything that's going on. You look up to your left, Navarre. You kind of just catch yourself just without any difficulty really. And you kind of snap your head over to look at Wallace and see that he's rumbling, which is a very strange feeling, of course, for the elemental. But you see almost like dust falling off of him. Like the way that if you were inside of a cave and there was an earthquake, let's say, that you might start to see dust falling off of ledges and that kind of stuff. And there's a little bit of panic. You hear a bunch of things falling off of shelves, is what it sounds like, coming from the general shop to your right, Kitas and Navarra. Like the earthquake has rattled so much that whatever was on shelves and things like that weren't necessarily nailed down have fallen off, and you hear a crash. You hear some glass breaking from over there. From around back of the general shop, from that area back there, you hear a horse whinny and start to run. But basically, there's just a lot of kind of a panicked wave going through the town as this earthquake rolls through. It is 11:30. What are you guys doing?
Is Wallace over there still, or is he still in the
Wallace,
saloon, throwing people around?
The shaking has ended. Wallace is standing in the doorway to the saloon. He had just thrown the other guy out and had turned, kind of halfway in the doorway to talk to Lily. And as soon as it started to shake, he'd kind of put both hands up on either side of the doorway, in kind of a futile effort that if the roof's going to come down, maybe he can try to hold it. That's what it looks like. And once the shaking has stopped, he's looking around, panicked, and you see that he's looking for faces inside the saloon there, like he's checking to make sure that everybody's okay. And then he turns and looks at you guys. He hasn't said anything to you, but he's kind of looking around like he's making sure that everybody's okay. What are you doing?
I'm gonna go over and tell Wallace that those two are gonna try to rob the bank in a bit, so we keep an eye on them. Because those two were there the first time around, weren't they? Or at least one of them was.
One of them was at the bank robbery.
Yeah.
The other one you didn't see, at least. Is
Okay.
how I'd say that. So
I'll tell Wallace that I saw one of them there, or one of them is gonna rob the bank at least later. So keep an eye on them both.
The bird looks at you with an incredulous, like, what the fuck are you talking about kind of a thing. His head is tilted 45 degrees to the side. Roll a persuasion check on Kitas.
And then I'll remind him that I was right about them causing trouble too.
Okay. He says, right about them causing trouble. They cause trouble every day. What are you even talking about? You guys were supposed to stay in the jail. This is supposed to be such a smooth day, just a simple, nice day. You guys come into town and all this shit starts happening. I don't know what's going on, but I don't trust you.
Well, we're here to try to figure out what's going on too and try to help. I'm telling you, that bank's gonna get robbed soon.
What are you even talking about? Who would rob the bank? There ain't nothing in there. Nobody needs diamonds no more. This isn't a place where a bank robbery would happen. This isn't some stagecoach.
Just keep an eye on those two.
The bird sighs as much as a bird can sigh, and he looks back over it, and he's kind of given up on talking to you, it seems like, and he's still talking to Lily, making sure everybody's okay. He says he's kind of turned and begins to step back out of the saloon. He says, I asked you guys to wait, and you told me you were going to do it. Now I need you to keep your word. I need to go check on the rest of the town, so just do what you said you were going to do and wait in the office, please. And he's kind of beginning to step out. Switch over to Peter real quick. Peter, behind the jail there, when the earth started to shake and you steadied yourself, you're holding against a wall that is beginning to dissolve. The stucco of this wall near that crack that you were looking at, where the kind of crack has wormed its way up from the ground, it begins to collapse through it, and you see the roof begin to kind of come down a little ways, drops about a good two feet or so. You kind of step away from it as the ground is still shaking, but you've steadied yourself enough that you're not going to fall from it. Kind of going on a wide stance, and as you've stepped yourself away, the crack has split into a much wider open space where there's probably a good solid foot or so of open space. And then once the kind of shaking has stopped, you hear Hetty on the inside say, I knew them Gerblins was trouble. And she's whispering that to herself. She doesn't know that you're there. She's just, speaking aloud to herself, without knowing how to whisper, essentially. And she, you can see movement on the inside of the jail cell. And you, a second later, see a foot that smashes into that crack and then comes back and then does it again, and you see that she's kicking that crack to try to make it bigger. And sure enough, unless you're interrupting in any way, are you just watching this happen?
As she's kicking it, I'm going to kind of stand to the side and kind of hide a little bit so she doesn't see that I'm back there. And if she breaks through and she makes a run, I'm going to see where she goes.
Okay, roll a stealth check. Yeah, it's fine. There is a series. There's 3 barrels with a crate stacked on top that are sitting out behind this. They're just old weathered barrels, but they're certainly enough for you to kind of put yourself behind. Toki's still out.
Yeah, he's kind of perched hiding behind me.
Okay. So you kind of take your hat and kind of pull it back a little bit just to keep from giving yourself away too much and sneak behind there. And just as you do, just as you get behind these barrels, you hear enough of that wall give way, and then it goes silent for a second, and then half a second later, you see Hetty just covered head to toe in all this dirt, and now all the new dirt, this place that was just kind of rattled around over her head, step out of the jail cell. She looks left, she looks right, just making sure that seeing if anybody notices her. Oh shit! I almost actually, whoops, I almost closed the server on accident. But she looks around and in a very trying to be sneaky, but probably doesn't know how to be sneaky kind of a look to her. And then she starts kind of carefully with her head ducked down and trying to be stealthy about this. She kind of starts to sneak off to the east a little ways. She goes behind. There's a couple of other buildings there, and she sneaks behind them. You lose sight of her there for a second, but she's gone behind those buildings and moving off toward the east. What are you doing?
I'm just gonna kind of follow her, see where she ends up, keep it low.
Okay. We can use that same stealth check, it's fine. You peek around the corner. If she was smarter, I'd probably make you roll another. But she doesn't really seem, she's not all there. But you kind of peek around the corner and see that she's already, a good ways ahead. She's a lot faster than you would have thought for her kind of disheveled nature and seemingly curmudgeon-y. But she's made her way off to the east a little way. She's now past the second building and is now essentially out in open air, just on this dry, dead grass. But there isn't anything else really to kind of hide behind. So she's kind of given up all pretenses of trying to be stealthy and is just basically running as fast as she can now, full bore, arms swinging at her sides towards the quarry to the east. So you basically see the edge of a cliff with a path that goes down. And she's run off towards the top of this path and begins to run down that path into what looks like a giant quarry.
All right. I think everything should be handled. So, what if I follow her to the quarry?
You certainly can. Yeah. So we'll come back to that in a second. Then. So what are Ketis and Ivar doing?
Okay. Actually, I have an idea. Can I use the locate animals? Because I have a feeling I know what that earthquake was.
Sure. What level is that? Let me look at it real quick.
Level 2.
Level 2. Locate animals / plants. All right. What does this do? Describe the name. Or VSM. Instant 1 action. Okay. Are you going to cast it as a ritual or just regular cast?
Just regular cast.
Okay. All right. So you can go and mark off your spell slot. Describe or name a specific kind of beast or plant, concentrating on the voice of nature in your surroundings. You learn the direction and distance of the closest creature or plant of that kind within 5 miles, if any are present.
Alright, I want to look for more of those little worm things that we fought outside the bubble.
Okay. The purple worms?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're standing in the middle of the road and doing this, near the ruffians that were there. You kind of close your eyes for a second and are kind of just listening to the natural world around you to try to sense where one of these might be. And I don't remember, did you recognize what a purple worm was from the nature check that you made when you were looking at them? I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
I think we'll just assume that you did, because they're not they're certainly rare, but it's something you probably would have been familiar with. You kind of are feeling for that kind of energy that was coming off of those things, and in doing so, it takes you far less time than you would have expected. You kind of, when you've used this in the past, have had to concentrate for a few seconds to feel and kind of let this natural energy that flows through the world, through all these living things, kind of come to you. But this one happens almost immediately, which is a little bit surprising. And part of the reason that it comes so suddenly is that it is the energy that comes back to you is gargantuan. It is so huge that it's you can't imagine a creature of this size. You it feels like you're familiar with say dinosaurs and things like that, and it feels so much larger than anything you would have ever been able to imagine a single creature being. And it definitely feels like there is absolutely one, and it is very close, and it is down along. It's underneath your feet by a very long ways, but there feels like there is a massive one of that same style of creature underneath you. What's Ketis doing?
We are in front of the sheriff's office still?
No, you're in the middle of the road, in front of the saloon, with the two ruffians on the ground. Wallace has walked past them, ignored both of them, and is about basically he's 15 feet south of you guys, walking over towards the general store, back to the general store. He came from the general store to the saloon, threw that guy out, and is now walking back to the general store, which is where you heard all the, the things breaking and stuff falling off the shelves and stuff like that, and the horse running away.
All right, can I go? Well, I don't know if Wallace can see me, but if not, can I sneak around and go see if there's anything going around on the outside of the bank? Go walk around and see if I can see anybody fucking around out there.
Sure. He asked you, the two of you, because he didn't see Peter. He saw Peter sneak around the corner, but basically he had asked you to go back and wait in the jail. So, you are risking his ire, potentially, by not following that, since you did agree to do that, and you weren't able to successfully convince him to let you just, run around town. Know what I mean? So you can do that, but you may be pissing him off, so keep that in mind. So you're going to head over to the bank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just quick look around.
Yeah, so you head back to the north. Navarre, are you going too? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'll go with and let him know that I felt that gigantic purple word.
Okay. Now, Peter does not know that yet, so keep that in mind, because Peter's off heading over to the quarry. So you guys kind of make your way up towards the bank. As you guys are heading that direction, the whole town is still, it's only been 30 seconds since the earth was shaking, so there's still a lot of kind of panic, a little bit of chaos, in the small town. You see, through windows, you see people kind of riding things and picking things up and trying to put them back on shelves, that kind of stuff. You see, a woman holding a broken vase in one of the small stores off to the left. And then we'll come back to you in just a second there. Peter, what are you doing at the quarry? So you've now reached the top of the quarry. Looking down the path, you don't see Hetty anymore. She is not visible to you anymore.
All right, I will quickly run inside the quarry just a little bit, just to see what's going on. If necessary, I'll cast my lights.
Well, it's not a cave. What you're looking at right now is you're at the top of a big hole in the ground that has this massive path that is carved that kind of switched back on itself, like stairs almost, that goes to the bottom of this giant hole in the ground, and then there is a cave down there. But you're basically standing at the top of this giant hole where the earth has been carved away. Basically, there's a mine entrance down at the bottom, but right now you're just at the top of where this whole place has been carved away until it gets to that mine.
All right, I assume Hetty's just long gone. She's just in the quarry. She went inside the cave.
You don't know. So roll a survival check to see if you can see like footsteps, or if you can follow a trail, that kind of thing.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a sec.
Roll a survival check. Survival is what you would use to identify if you can see like a trail or somebody's footsteps and that kind of stuff. Looking around, you see so many different footfalls in the dirt here, and the dirt's relatively hard packed anyways that you can't really identify which ones would be hers. Maybe if you had known what kinds of shoes she was wearing or something like that, or been able to see it earlier, that might have given you some clue. But there's just so much kind of chaos in the dirt here that you don't necessarily know where she went. You just know that once she had disappeared from view into the top part of the quarry there, which you've now reached, where you're standing basically. Once she got past this, you lost sight of her, and now you don't know where she is.
All right. Since I'm already here, I might as well just go to the quarry, to the opening of the cave.
Okay. That's easy enough. You make your way down. It takes a good probably 3 minutes or so of you kind of going back and forth down this thing, because it's a long way down. of this kind of blasted quarry of where they've carved out this whole space. But you make your way down there. There isn't really anything of note along this path. It's basically just, you know, carved out as a way of getting down there. In a couple of spots, there are ladders that have, you know, are old, where they've kind of just put them in place so that people could climb down the ladder rather than following this whole path the whole way down. So you can do that to kind of speed your way up to get down to the bottom. And you make your way in. The entrance to the cave is very dark. There's no light source inside. So what are you doing?
Casting dancing lights, and then kind of run into the cave cautiously, looking around.
Okay. Let's see. I'll tell you what. How cautious are you being? I guess. What do you describe to me? What you mean by being cautious?
Walking at a regular pace, but scanning the walls, looking for loose rocks, traps, things like that.
Okay. You. Hang on. Where is the audio for that? I should be getting audio, but I'm not hearing anything. Play, fucker. Let me fix this real quick. Alright, well I guess those aren't going to work in the meantime, so I'll figure that out later. I have different, you know, audio settings for different things, of course, but I'll have to ignore that for now, I guess. That's annoying. Anyway, so you step your way inside. The air in here is somehow even worse than it is outside. It's just stale and cloying, and it's almost hard to breathe because of all the dust and you know, coal and shit that's just floating in the air. Humidity in here is inside the dome has made this cavern almost slippery. Like you see that the walls almost look moisture, like there's moisture dripping down them. There's just tiny little rivulets where the age-old dust has begun to kind of wash away. It's really, really quiet in here, except for some very distant rumbling that's echoing up through the tunnels that's coming from far inside and below. You are not hearing... So roll a perception on Peter. You're, especially with the kind of military training, you're listening very intently to hear, you know, if there's movement inside. And this place is silent enough that if there was somebody moving in here, even if it's far away, you'd probably hear it echoing through these tunnels, and you know that from having done some demolition. And you're not hearing movement coming from inside, other than some very distant rumbling that doesn't sound like, you know, a middle-aged woman running around inside here. So what are you doing?
I guess I'm just going to keep running down, just to kind of see where that rumbling's coming from.
Okay. You roll a stealth check on Peter. Whoops. Okay. You make your way in, and this is definitely a mine shaft that hasn't seen any use for a little while. Lots of dust, which I mean you'd expect in a mine shaft anyways. But you see a lot of framing embankments where the tunnel has these wooden supports, basically that just look almost like a tree that's just been carved away a little bit, that are holding the roof up in a few different spots. You come to a Y intersection. A little ways in, and it's just, other than your dancing lights, which you've got these 4 floating balls kind of bouncing overhead to light the place, it is pitch black in here. Like you've gone around enough corners now that there's no light coming from behind you anymore. It's only been one long tunnel, so there's no not being able to find your way back. You'll be just fine being able to get back. There's just not any light coming from that. The only source is from the balls overhead. But you come to this intersection where the tunnel splits into not quite a T, but more of a Y, and you get a choice of either going back, going left, or going right. Which way?
Let's just run right.
Okay. So you head off that way, and it immediately turns around another corner off to the right even further, where you can no longer see the intersection behind you. And you just ahead, this is just barely out of view, or just barely coming into view rather. You can see that there is it was probably a cave-in of some kind, but there is a small hole in the middle of it where the framing has kind of blocked off part of it, and there's just enough space that somebody could crawl through potentially. And then there's a bunch of barrels and stuff that are all stacked up around it that would be. It looks like maybe they were, at one point going to dig this out, this collapsed part of the tunnel, but maybe they didn't get it finished before they closed the mine or something like that. What are you doing?
Walk up to that opening, see if I can carefully break a small opening to get through. But kind of looking around to see if there's no explosives, of course.
Roll an investigation. Actually, so you come up to it. Go ahead and roll an investigation for just as you're walking up. You can even smell it in the air. You smell sulfur of the kind that would be used to make explosives all around here. It is, in fact, the same smell you were getting off of Hetty when she was close by. And so as you are looking around this and kind of smelling it in the air, you hear the sound of something being swung through the air very quickly, as fast as, like basically something about to hit you, and you don't have time to really react in time. You turn your head just slightly, and something smacks you very hard in the head, and you hear, before you go a little wonky from the head wound, you hear, "I knew you was a Gerblin," and then you're blacked out. She rolled a 13, your AC was a 12. And your stealth or your perception was not enough to notice her with her stealth roll, so she beat you on that. But you just got brained with a shovel, and you're now unconscious for a moment. We'll come back to you in a second. You're not dead, just unconscious for a moment from the head. Ketis and Ivara approaching the bank on the outside. That's annoying that I didn't have the freaking cave atmosphere to work. I should have tested that earlier. Anyway, the outside the bank, though, it looks relatively normal. I mean, you're not seeing, like, nobody seems panicked beyond just from the earthquake. Like, you don't see a staging for a bank robbery or anything like that. When you step inside, you do see two guards, one on either side of the... Oh, well, sorry, I guess I should have asked. Are you going inside, or are you just, like, looking from the outside?
I was going to go look around the outside first and see if there's, like, anybody hanging around out there or anything. Looks like anything suspicious.
Roll an investigation.
Okay.
Looking around the front, there's nothing on the front that gives you any weird feeling around, at least there. Stepping around a little bit, like, because the bank is on the north side of town, so I mean you can see two walls of it essentially, and then the clock tower's right behind. Stepping around, though, everything looks pretty normal. You do see just down the way a little bit, down the street in front of the building to the south of it, there is one guy with a purple kerchief around his neck. It's not over his face, just around his neck, but he's just leaning against the wall. Looks like he's got a beer in one hand, or at least a brown bottle that he's drinking out of. But he's just leaned against the wall. Doesn't really seem to be paying you much mind.
Okay.
What's Navarro doing?
Last time you said that the clock tower was on fire, right? Before it fell.
At the end of things,
Yeah.
It was, yes. Yeah. It caught fire. So, all right, the series of events that you saw, and I'm displaying this in a way that this is what Navarro knew was happening. The bank robbery happened. That caused a fire. The fire caught the clock tower on fire. The clock tower then fell. Okay. And that was at the end of things. Basically, the clock tower fell right at the end when the town was collapsing in on itself.
Alright, then I'm gonna go walk over by the clock tower and back around the backside of the bank over there.
Okay. Let's see, so Peter's a little bit ahead in time, so it'll be a minute before we get back to what Peter's doing, because he was running. His time that it took him to get down into the quarry took longer than you guys just being around the bank right now. So it'll be a minute before you get back to you, Sako. I don't want. I'm trying to kind of switch back and as fairly as possible, so everybody's kind of getting some time, and I don't want you guys to feel bored or anything like that. A little harder when you guys split the party a little bit, which in this particular arc is probably makes more sense to do. So it's good that you're doing so. I just don't want you guys to get bored or anything while I'm focused on one instead of the others. Anyway, so you go around back. Let's see, for time, like I said, he's a little bit further ahead. He's probably at, say, 11:44, and you guys are still at around 11:32, maybe 11:33 at this point. Everybody understand where we're at?
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to catch you guys up, basically. Navarre, looking around the back, what are you looking for? Anything like in particular? What is it that you're trying to find?
Just anything out of place or anybody out of place.
Where you go around back, at first you don't see anything. Roll an investigation on Navarre. Not with that. Yeah, you go around back there. I mean, there's just piles and piles of stuff back here. This maybe, looks like it might be some kind of a storage area for them. There are big bags of grain that are sitting on top of a couple of wooden crates, like huge, wooden crates. And this place is so dry, it seems like they're just storing their grain out in the open, whereas normally you'd need a grain silo of some kind. But I mean, you make a full loop of the place and kind of go through the little alley before you're back in the front again, and nothing really stood out. Nothing looked abnormal. You did notice that the clock tower is wood top to bottom, whereas the rest of this place is all stucco. What are you guys doing?
Want to go inside?
Sure.
Okay, we'll go inside.
Okay. So you kind of step up to the front of it. You notice that the bank does have bars over the windows on the inside. They're as decorative as they could be. They look like they're trying to not make it look not homely. They just need to keep the place secure. In kind of a Western kind of a style. The walls for this place do appear to be on the inside look like they're solid wood as well, and maybe the stucco is just a kind of a siding essentially on the outside. But you step inside, there's a guard on either side of the door. They both have little badges on their chests that look similar to the one that Wallace is wearing. And you see them, you see that there's a dwarf woman behind the counter that looks like she's counting the till. And there's an older man, balding, a little portly, that is talking to her at the counter. Other than that, the place, it looks like there aren't any other people in here right now that you can see. There is a giant vault door that is just behind the counter. It is closed right now.
Okay.
What are you doing?
Well, probably going to be a few more minutes. We should probably... Or you want to go find Wallace and meet the sheriff? Because if we wait here at the bank, then probably a few minutes before it happens anyway. And Wallace will probably find us at the post office. So, what do you want to do? Or do you want to just wait here and until everything goes down?
Probably not, because they'll probably think that it's weird that we're just standing inside the bank and we don't have any money or
Yeah,
anything
that's
to do with the bank. So probably
While
not a good
you guys are kind of trying to decide what to do, you start hearing a stomp, 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 stomp coming up the deck, the porch area, just south of you on this side of the road coming towards the bank. It sounds like Wallace coming this way.
Okay.
Time to go.
Okay, so I guess what are you guys doing? It's not outside the door yet, but it is coming this way. It's probably just north, because remember he was in the general shop, which is just south of you, Abernathy's General. So he's on his way here, coming up you guys just went through the door. That as soon as you step right back out again, he's gonna see you standing there in front of the bank. So what are you doing?
Just go out and say, all right, we're ready to go meet the sheriff or what? Because I don't think there's another way out, so might as well not try to run.
Okay. All right. So you step your way out. He's still, half a block away, basically. He's still a little ways down. He's not like within shouting distance just yet. But you step out. Navarre, are you doing the same? You're just staying with Ketis?
Yep.
Okay. So you guys are just standing there waiting as Wallace kind of makes the rest of the way up to you, and you hear again that strange sound as he gets kind of within 10 feet or so of a bird trying to sigh, and you hear I asked you guys so politely. I tried my best to be nice to you. I told you I would go and find Sheriff Isaac, and you were just going to wait in town. You said you were going to wait in there. You told me, you gave me your word, and it really bothers me that you guys aren't people to take care, you know, to follow your word. So I don't think I can trust you anymore. Let's go. We're going back to the jail. You guys are going in there. You'll wait in a cell until I find Sheriff Isaac. You may not be bad guys, but you haven't kept your word, and that means I can't trust you. Where's your friend?
We didn't see where he ran off to, did we?
Well, I don't know, Peter. I mean, as far as that stealth roll, they would have seen you, but you guys were kind of facing south. So, Peter, did you tell them where you were going?
Well, I'm sure Ketis saw me run around the building, but I didn't tell him exactly what we're going to do. As far as he knew, we were just going to stand in the back of the jail where the wall collapsed.
All right. So, yeah. So, I mean, you knew that he went around the back of the jail, but you don't
Yeah.
necessarily know where he went beyond that. So,
So tell Wallace that we're not sure.
he sighs again.
Told me he was by the jail.
He says, "Well, you guys are going to be in some real trouble if he's not around." So he's meaning, you know, if he's not in the jail. He kind of points with his halberd towards the jail. He says, "Let's go," which is just across the street, like directly across the street.
All right.
You going with him?
Yeah.
All right. So he stomps. He's stomping behind you, kind of leading you over to the jail. It is at this point, after you guys spent a couple minutes like looking around and looking in the bank. We're at probably 11:40ish, so you're almost catching up to where we're caught up with Peter. But you step inside. He kind of leads you. First, as soon as you step through the door, he looks over and sees the head he's gone, and that there's a big old hole in the wall. And he says, "Oh Jesus, can today just leave me alone?" And you know that he's having a rough day, obviously. He says, "I don't know what it is. It's been a peaceful couple of years. We never have trouble here. You guys come into town and everything starts falling apart all at once. I knew something was off with you guys." And he's kind of talking to himself almost, but he leads you into the other jail cell, the one that is not the one with the hole in it, where Hitty was. And the door was open, but he leads you into it and he closes it. And he says, just hold right there for a second. He goes over his desk, pulls the drawer open, and then just another big sigh. He says, "Fucking Christ, can you just, where are my keys? What'd you guys do? Where are my keys?"
Not sure.
Well, you have them in your pocket, so roll a deception on Ketis. We didn't see any keys.
Well, I didn't. I was talking to Eddie.
That's all right. So no deception needed for Navarra, but definitely for Ketis. He says, so you just tell him that you haven't seen any keys? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said I'm not sure.
He says, "So then your friend must have them. Fucking wonderful." And he just kind of, he closes the door in front of you. He says, "Just because I can't lock this doesn't mean I can't catch you. You're going to stay here. I'm not putting up with this shit anymore. All right?"
Okay.
And he turns. He's presumably going to go find Peter, or at least go look for him. But you two are now kind of not locked, but you're inside a jail cell that you could just kind of open the door for, because he can't lock you in because you guys stole his keys. So, I mean, you could be polite and lock yourselves in since you have the keys, but he goes kind of stomping off to the door. You see the bird look left, look right, and then kind of turn off to the side, going around the same way that Peter went, which is, around the back of the jail there. And now we are caught up. The two of you are in there for a couple of minutes, basically, before you hear some commotion outside of people in the street. And from your angle, you can't see easily because of the angle of where the window is. It looks out toward the street. Basically, one of you could see if you had your face like flat against the side of the jail cell. You'd be able to see just enough out the window to be able to look, but really only one of you at a time, unless you're like, one of you on the shoulders of the other or something like that, like a couple of Gerblins. But you're so just barely able to kind of make out a little bit from that angle from that second jail cell. From Hetty's jail cell, you can see straight out the door, but that's not where you are. So anyways, from there, you're hearing some commotion in the street. You hear one horse and some people kind of, moving up towards, in the middle of the street, basically right out front of the jail. And where who's looking, I guess.
You're probably taller than I am, so you'd be able to see better.
Okay, I'll look.
Okay. All right, so the Ketis looking out the window there, you do see three dudes with one of them riding a horse. One of the one riding a horse is a little older, a little gray. You see a very roll up perception actually on Ketis. There is what looks like a very expensive, very well-made piece of jewelry around the neck of the older man that's riding the horse. All three, these three, there's five total, but there's three that are wearing purple kerchiefs around their necks, and the one on the horse is got straight hair about shoulder length or so, with a big bushy mustache, and is wearing this very shiny, very expensive looking silver, like probably platinum actually, but silver in color, very well maintained necklace that is a cross inside of a circle, so an equally sided basically a plus sign inside of a circle around his neck. And whereas everything in this town, it just has a thin layer of dust on it, this thing looks like it's like he maintains it constantly, like he's constantly polishing it and keeping it, you know, looking nice rather than letting it kind of collect dust and age like everything else in the town. But you've seen him ride up on this horse, and the four other people with him, two others wearing purple kerchiefs, that have pulled up kind of, they're not looking your direction, they're looking towards the bank. And they, the three with the purple kerchiefs, lift them up over their faces. And you have kind of a moment of incredulity here a little bit, because this is a town where everybody knows who everybody is, so wearing these kerchiefs would be, you're thinking this is obvious, like you know what's about to happen because you just experienced this, but you're looking at it in a sense that says that, why even bother? I mean, everybody's going to know who he is just by the hair, you know what I mean? Everybody's going to know who any of these people are with just even looking in their eyes, but they're still, you know, making an effort for some reason. And you hear the guy on the horse kind of begins to slide off of it, and he shouts to the others. He says, all right, guys, you know what we're looking for. So, you know, just we don't need to hurt nobody. We just need to get in there and get it, and then we'll be out of here. And maybe we can fix this problem. Maybe we can get this bubble down. And we can go on our own. You know, go back to our homes and everything. All right. And everybody's kind of nodding, and it looks like they're all kind of trying to steel themselves for something. Like this is you know, a very scary moment for them, but maybe they're trying to prepare themselves for what could be, you know, potentially very dangerous. One of them, in fact, one of the ones wearing the purple, is definitely the one that you saw in the street that was on fire and died, you know, on fire when you were trying to rescue the dwarf. So, anyways, they've kind of begun to step their way up towards the front of the bank there. What are you guys doing? It is 11:45, by the way.
Alright, well, you want to go get out and watch what they're doing?
Yeah. Try to sneak in the bank behind him, I guess.
Is that what you guys are doing?
Yeah.
Okay. You open the jail, the door, and it has a very loud creak. The same, I should have told you that, but it made a loud creak when you went in, when Wallace was locking you, or, you know, not locking you in, but opening it up for you. And it has a very loud creak, and you immediately hear, as you were doing that, in fact, so the sound that you hear with that creak is the stomp, 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 the distinctive sound of Wallace moving, but it happened at the same time, so you don't feel like it was in response to the creak of this, but probably in response to the sound of people outside of the bank, because you had given Wallace, so he may not have believed you, but given him some suspicion about this, that maybe he was kind of at least keeping an eye on it just in case. So anyways, it doesn't sound like he's moving in response to the jail opening, but rather to the people moving in the street, because it happens at the same time. But you open that and you hear from the other side of the wall, just to the north of you, that stomp, stomp, stomp on the outside of the deck. And as the people are trying to enter the bank across the street. But you make your way out of the jail cell and are looking through the door. You're just watching from there?
What, you want to... Yeah, let's not get too close, but kind of trail them a little bit. What are you thinking? If we can.
Well, you're going to be, as soon as you step out the door, you're going to be side by side with Wallace.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess we'll just go step out and see what's going on.
Okay, you peek your head out the door, and the moment you do, Wallace comes around the corner and the bird looks in your direction, and immediately a massive stone hand just comes up in front of your face and pushes your face back inside. Just a giant hand palming your face, just basically like, if a rock could be pushed against your face and moving you back, that's what it is. You know, you almost get a bloody nose from it because he's kind of quick about it. And the bird chirps at you. He says, "Stay inside," like very stern, very angry, looking like he's had about enough of your guys' shit that you're not listening. And he's stomping his way over towards the bank. What are you guys doing?
Okay, all right, I guess we'll just watch them.
Okay. So you're just watching from the doorway?
Yeah.
Okay. right, then we will come back to that in just a minute. We are going to skip back to Peter, who is now waking up after a couple minute nap in the dirt. You, Peter, now are awake, laying flat on your, laying head to one side, ear in the dirt, basically. Inside this, your dancing lights have gone out. You are now just laying. You open your eyes in complete darkness. What are you doing?
All right, first things first, I'm going to mumble to myself, my gird, I'm not a gerblin. And then I'm going to recast my dancing lights to get bearings.
Okay. So you snap your fingers, and these 4 orbs just kind of flit up out of your hand and kind of start bouncing around above you. It looks about the same. You do see... Roll a perception on Peter. You definitely immediately can see that there some of the dirt that had settled on that framing that was where that kind of hole that could be crawled through was there, and that dirt has been disturbed. It looks like somebody crawled through that hole.
All right.
And in fact, actually, with that roll, you also notice that some of the supplies around you have also moved. Some of the things that were in these barrels and shit like that, those moved a little bit.
Gotcha. All right, let's kind of look inside that hole, see if I can see anything, send a couple of my dancing lights through.
Sure. It looks like the path continues on a little ways, and there is another cave-in a little bit further in. From here, from that angle, you can't... It looks like there might be another path that goes off to one side, but you're not quite sure, because you can't really tell if there's an opening there or not. But you can see it looks like that at least straight ahead, after another 40 feet or so, there's another cave-in, and then potentially an alley off of that.
All right, let's keep pushing then. Let's keep going in and see what I can see at the end.
As soon as you have... So you're crawling through that hallway? Through the hole?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So you're about halfway through, let's say. So just like over your midsection, when you're kind of in the middle of this, trying to pull your way through, and you're a little bigger than Hetty, so it's not as easy of a fit through this, but you're kind of working your way through it, and you hear an extremely loud boom coming from a little ways away and up above, like on the surface, but so loud that and so big of a blast that the whole place shakes around you, and for the briefest moments you have this sense of panic, like, oh shit, if this comes down on me and I'm right here, like, I'm fucked. But it doesn't feel like it was enough to shake the earth here so much. Like, you definitely see, like what I was describing with Wallace earlier, where there's bits of loose dirt that come off of the walls and kind of cave in a little bit, and you end up getting a little bit in your mouth, and you have to kind of spit this old dirt out. But that this loud boom that just occurred above you and off a little ways away was wherever it happened was extremely loud and extremely violent. But thankfully, you're far enough underground and far enough away that it didn't cause you too much trouble otherwise. So, but you do pull yourself the rest of the way through. What are you doing?
All right, sounds good. Just keep pushing forward to the next dead end.
Okay. As you get closer, you do see, that it looks like it turns off to one side, and you do notice that there's a bunch of dirt around this spot that has been disturbed. Like, it looks like it was dug up. Right where this intersection happens, right where basically that dead end is, and it turns off to one side.
Can I see if anything was kind of removed from the ground or removed from that area?
Roll an investigation. Yeah, it definitely looks like there had been something buried here that looks like it was dug up, and the dirt looks fresh. It doesn't look like this happened very long ago. And the air smells very strongly of sulfur around here.
All right. Are there any other paths I can test?
Well, actually, sorry, with that roll, you do notice that where the... So this is going to be a little harder to describe, I think. So the spot where something was dug up, the dirt's been disturbed, there is a line of similarly disturbed dirt that looks older So this is where the complicated part comes in. It looks like there is a line where you see a hole that was dug, and then a thin line where like a thin path was dug, and then another hole about 10 feet away, and then a thin line that goes another 10 feet, and then another hole. And each of those other holes are older, and those are still, it still looks like that burying of whatever was there. Those don't look like they've been dug up, except the one that you're looking at is just a hole where the fresh dirt has been kind of pushed to one side, and that looks totally fresh, whereas the others look a little bit older. It looks like a chain of things lined up, and one of them has been removed.
Copy that. Understood. All right. So the hole that I'm currently at, the one that was dug up, looks to be one of the last holes that was connected to a line to another hole, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. And those that line of this kind of chain of whatever was dug up goes down this new path where you have not gone yet.
All right, in my head, I know what's going on, but I'm debating whether to run down there. Let's try it. It's about, what, 11:50 or so? 11:55?
Yeah, right about there. Probably 11:50-ish, actually. Because the bank the explosion just happened, which was delayed a little bit because of some things that you did. You don't know that, but basically, the first loop, the explosion happened at 11:45. This one, it was delayed a little bit. So the boom happened when you were in the middle of the thing when you were trying to crawl through because of that delay. So anyways, we're probably 11:51, 11:52, something like that.
All right, just like the great Leroy Jenkins, follow the line and run as fast as I can down that hallway.
Roll a... Esther, shut up. Roll a dex save. You running, you're trying to run fast, was the idea?
Yeah, pretty much. It's I'm just gonna follow that line of holes, hole, line, and see if I can get to the source.
You, as you're running down, you hear this before anything happens. You hear the sound, and it's a click, and it's too late. You know that it's too late. There's no saving yourself at this point. You know what's going to happen because you kind of figured out what this was, and maybe you're in your head are just hoping, well, as long as this loop resets, hopefully everything will be all right. Maybe this was an information gathering attempt, but you kind of in the back of your mind you knew this is what was going to happen. But you hear a click, and you hear a voice that this time actually is relatively quiet, but only for the silence of this place you're able to kind of make it out, that says, "I'm sorry, you Gerblins," and it's just too late. And then there is another boom, but this time much closer and much more violent, and you die. You get blown up in a chain of explosions that happen right next to you along this right wall just at your feet. It goes boom, boom, boom towards you, and then you're just obliterated. And you're dead. And we'll come back to that in a minute. So
All right.
Back to him being dead. An update, he's still dead. All right.
yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll switch back just to remind you that you're dead. And then
Yeah.
Now, for what Kiedis and Ivara saw, was an accelerated version of events of what you saw in the first loop, this time getting a first-hand view of it. You saw this group of people step inside the bank, and there was a ton of commotion inside. You hear, well, you guys don't recognize this sound, but you do hear spells going off, essentially, inside, a couple of them, while Wallace has, kind of pushed you back and run across the street. You start hearing very sickening sounds of viscera being splattered all over the place, and just as this is going on, there is that boom, that explosion sound, and your ears are immediately ringing. You almost can't hear anything else for a good probably 3 or 4 seconds as the place fills with smoke. Part of the roof of the bank that you can see from here blows out from this explosion and lifts off and goes kind of sailing through the air until it collapses next to the bank out in the road to the north, not between you, but off to the side. There is instantly just a massive pillar of smoke sailing up through the hole in the ceiling there, and there are screams coming from all directions, not just from inside the bank, but from all over the place of whatever is causing this. The sounds of violence are stomach turning, certainly, and that you're hearing a fight from inside that sounds like it's very one-sided. You're presuming that to be in Wallace's favor. And then you see a purple kerchiefed, one of the guys that had stepped inside, very much on fire, just head to toe covered in fire. You can barely make out even that purple kerchief on him. Go running out into the dirt and fall face first into the dirt and try to start to roll, like maybe he's trying to put himself out, but he just stops moving about halfway through and is unsuccessful in that, and it looks like he's just burning and probably no longer alive. And so the noise from inside kind of keeps going, and you're just almost dumbfounded and shocked and standing there. You know you don't have very long left, but what are you guys doing?
All right. Well, what else can we go look for? I guess if we look around. No, because Hetty was down in the quarry when that happened, right? Where Peter was.
You don't know that. You just know that she was in the jail, and you guys stepped out of the jail, and you didn't see.
I'm gonna look around real quick then before it ends and see if I can see anybody else. Like, see if I can see her running around or anything.
No, you don't. You just know that when you guys stepped outside and Peter went around back, she was still inside the jail, and when you came back in, there was a hole in the wall, and she was not in there. That's all you know.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, because of the previous loop, you did see her kick the hole in the wall and leave, so you could probably have intuited, of course, that she did the same thing this time, but you still didn't see where she went. You just knew that she ran out to the east somewhere.
Okay.
What are you doing?
I mean, I guess we could go in the bank and try to help. Not that it's going to do much good in a few minutes,
Yeah.
but
Might as well.
Well, just as you are heading that direction, the clock begins to strike its countdown. And the tones of striking noon, and the ground beneath you begins to shake and rattle, and just like the previous cycle of doing so, the whole earthquake that you felt earlier wasn't half as violent as this. Everything underneath you begins to come out from under your feet. There is just another massive tremor. This one's just insanely powerful, much longer and much more powerful than the last, and it doesn't seem to show any signs of stopping. It just picks up as the clock finally strikes noon. The residents are now that are in the street and screaming over what was happening in the bank. They're beginning to kind of collect together in these small groups and just kind of holding on to each other and looking around in panic. And the buildings that were standing all around you, just the normal, the general store, the saloon, everything begins to just start to kind of cave in on itself, like it was just made of toothpicks because the ground was just shaking so much that it's just hard for you guys to keep your footing. The jail begins to collapse in overhead. You guys are kind of standing in the doorway, so you're in a relatively safe spot with the roof behind where it had already started to cave above the hole that Hetty had kicked in the wall. That starts to collapse. Everything is beginning to just fall all around you. And just between you, in the middle of the road, a huge fissure begins to open up, and it begins to expand, just this massive kind of crack in the dry earth. And you can see kind of these sheer cliffs almost, where there's this kind of orange glow coming up from below. You look up and see that the clock tower, all the smoke coming up from the bank and the clock tower there, it looks like it has caught the clock tower on fire, and the clock tower snaps at its midsection just as the chime hits the 12th, and it falls over into that two-story manor at the end of the street that's off on the right there. The ground that is quickly expanding, it's beginning to fall out under your feet. The jail that you're in is starting to tip into this fissure in front of you. And you're falling, and you're burning, and you're being crushed, and the earth is beginning to kind of compress where you are, down into the ground, and you hear this anguished scream coming from something massive and furious that's underneath you. And as the two remaining of you are just about to die here in this hell below the earth, you all three wake up, Peter included, who is now no longer dead. And suddenly you're back in that white space, and you see that old woman again, and she's leaning on this spear, this large stick with a kind of a ceremonial looking tip to it. It doesn't necessarily look like a weapon spear, but maybe more of a staff with a jeweled tip. And she looks up at you guys, and she kind of shakes her head a little bit, like she's very tired. And then you wake back in the dirt. Then you are outside of Dry Gulch, back in the dirt, with Wallace standing in front of you, as if nothing ever happened. So you learned a little bit that loop, you know, at least more to take action on. Let's just take a quick break. It's about 3 anyway, so we'll have another probably hour and a half or 2. So let's take a quick break. You guys can kind of think about what your next moves are, and then we'll start the next loop. How's that sound?
Cool.
Smells good.
All right, break time. I'm back. Anybody here? Let me know when you guys get back. Hush tones.
All right, I'm back.
Yo.
Hey, I was hoping the laundry would be done by now, but still got another 20 minutes.
That's fine. If you need to run for a second to swap it out, 20 minutes, no big deal.
Yeah, it's fine. No big deal.
So where do you think we're going with this arc? What do you think so far?
Yeah, it's pretty good so far. It's gonna probably need, one more loop, and I guess we'll test out a bunch of theories this time.
Yeah, there's a little bit. You guys got some important info in that one. You may not know that it's important yet, but you'll pick up. Becky's back.
Yep.
Hey. How's
Yep.
work going, Becky? Hey, G.
Pretty good. Like the new house I'm working at. So.
A little safer than the last one. Less violent criminal.
There's one, but she's not. It's like maybe once a month that she has an episode, so it's a lot better than it was.
That's good. Is it still in town?
Yeah, it's a little bit closer to the house than it used to be.
Nice. All right. I heard Ben back too, right?
Yeah.
All right, and we can get back to where we were going. All right. So, back where we left off. You guys have now woken up in the dirt again. Wallace is in front of you. A little bit of a surprise. The bird is not on his shoulder yet. He is still just, basically a giant pile of rocks standing there staring at you and kind of in the gateway here. What are you guys doing?
All right. Well, this time we're going to see if we can convince Wallace. Because Becky said that there was wanted posters for the guys in the purple handkerchiefs. So we're going to see if we can convince them that we're here looking for those guys.
Okay. All right, so you're standing up out of the dirt. All three of you are. Becky, you don't need a nap this time.
No, no, good.
Okay.
Dust yourself off.
Yep, I'm good. Toki's on my shoulder.
All right, so the three of you then kind of stand up. Yeah, you're dusting yourselves off. Wallace is standing there, little surprised looking. You hear a loud bird screech coming from above you, and then half a second later, this little bird kind of flits down onto its shoulder, and looks at the three of you. Says, "Whoa, where did you guys come from? We're not getting a lot of visitors here." He says, "Identify yourselves."
Name's Ketis.
Peter.
Never.
Well, Ketis, Peter, Navarra, it's nice to meet you. I'm Wallace. This is Dry Gulch here. We're a little safe town. We don't take kindly to trouble. So I guess what's your business here?
We're actually here trying to keep it quiet too. We saw a wanted poster for a couple of guys, seeing if we can help find them.
Well, I mean, it's a real small town. I don't know that I need too much trouble. We don't really take mercenary folk in general. But I guess who are you looking for? Maybe I can help you find them.
A couple of fellers wearing purple kerchiefs.
You said fellers.
Fellers.
Purple kerchiefs. I mean, we got a little. I mean, I would say they're a little ruffian gang, but that's giving them too much credit. They're really just town folk. They're a little bored. We like I said, we don't get many visitors, and he kind of motions at the dome around you. He says on account of that, I mean, we don't get new folk here in town, and these guys are just bored. It really can't be much of a reward looking for just bored townsfolk. So I guess I don't really know how to help you there. I suppose, I mean, and he kind of turns and looks back towards the town. He says we can guess we can go in and meet with Sheriff Isaac, and you can kind of tell him what you're looking for, and leave it up to him on whether or not there's a reward for these guys. Did they do something you guys are here to that I didn't know about? Like, did they hurt somebody outside of town or something?
Well, we heard they're going to be attention to bank robbery later.
A bank robbery? I mean, I don't know. I think you got some bad information there, partner. It's really not much to rob here in town. I mean, since this thing went up, we don't really have much use for money, and that's really all that's in that bank. So that doesn't sound right. Sounds like you guys went a long way for nothing.
Well, still, keep our eye on him. Humorous.
Well, I suppose. I mean, that's what you guys want. I guess we'll head on into the sheriff's office, and we'll see if we can find Sheriff Isaac. You can kind of tell him what you're looking for. He says, I gotta ask though. I mean, with that thing, how'd you get in? Like, was there a way out we weren't aware of? We've been looking forever. How'd you get in through that thing?
Just tell him the cannon again, or what?
It's up to you guys. What do you want to tell him?
Just tell him. Not even quite sure. We kind of just got shot through and woke up face down in the dirt with you looking at us. So.
Shot through? All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, maybe you can tell me more about it as we walk. Roll a Ketis, since you were doing most of the talking. Roll a persuasion check. Get out. Go. The dog snuck in here. Go on, out. Roll a persuasion on Ketis to see how much he believes what you were saying. Nope. Stop it. I don't normally lock the dogs out, but they're trying to get in. That's actually a decent roll. He doesn't look as suspicious of you guys this time as he did last time, but he's still, intending to lead you in towards the sheriff's office, towards the jail. So he's kind of turned. He's reaching over and grabbed his halberd, the long pole axe, and he's kind of He's got one hand up politely to kind of usher you guys in. He's gonna walk behind you. What are you doing?
Well, I want to at least head to the jail. So.
Real quick, Peter, roll a perception on Peter. Out. Dumb dogs. I'm gonna close the door. Out. If you're not gonna listen, you can't be in here. Go. Esther, out. Okay. This would normally be almost imperceptible, but as long as you had spent carrying a pack in the military with, all of your gear that was required for it, Peter, you feel a difference in weight in your pack than you had felt, before you died, like 8 minutes ago at this point. And you kind of just instinctively reach back to feel what that difference in weight might be, and you feel a jar in your bag again.
Can I check my pockets real quick to see if I have the diamonds?
You do not.
Well then.
It's a jar of bees.
What'd you say?
It's back. I said it's a jar of bees. It's back.
The jar of bees is back, but he is now missing the 11 diamonds that he had earned in his poker game, or blackjack game.
Yeah.
Do you understand what that means?
It was reset because that's what happened last time we went
You
through the
don't have
cycle,
the
right?
keys either.
Yeah, we don't
Yeah,
have the keys
The keys
either.
are gone.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, the keys.
Yeah.
Well, the keys probably weighed about the same actually as the jar of bees, most likely. But yeah, so it means that anything you pick up as far as items, if you lose something or anything else, it seems like it all resets back to the way that it was. The same way that like your shoulder hurts again, Peter. You're still missing those HPs from being bitten by the purple worm outside. So the physical seems to all reset. It's the mental that appears not to, meaning your spell slots and things like that. Those don't appear to come back so far, and your as far as you've noticed so far anyway, and the memories, things like that, you still have that. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay. I will also tell you, by the way, just to give you guys a little bit of a hint, the boy that Nivara was talking to in the saloon that had told Nivara about Mammy, the woods witch, she is here. I specifically have her in here to give you guys clues. So if you're not sure where to go next or what to do, she's a diviner, just like Peter. So she specifically will be able to give you clues on, like to give you kind of a general idea of where to go next, that kind of thing, if you're not sure what to do. So that's the only hint I'm going to give you. The rest of you're going to have to figure out on your own. But anyways, so you are now standing, and with Wallace standing there, kind of motioning for you to walk in front of him so that he can take you off to the sheriff's office. What are you doing?
I'm gonna go because I want to visit the jail this time.
Okay. So you all three going to the jail? Peter, Navarre?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go to the jail. I don't know if Navarre wants to talk to that person again, but yeah.
Do you mean the kid in the saloon?
Yeah, if everyone wants to go to the jail, we'll go to the jail.
Okay. All right. So you kind of make your way in. You look up at the clock. It's about 11:03. You didn't spend too long talking with him, so you're a little bit ahead of the last time. Now remember, you can rewind past certain points again if you need to, but if you have different actions beforehand, then the same people might not be in the same place because they're moving around too. Their lives are moving throughout this hour as well. They're not just sitting there waiting for you to come to them like it might be in a video game. But anyways, you guys make your way up to the jail. You step inside. You see Hetty in the jail cell with a crack on the wall there. She's kind of looking back and forth at you guys very suspiciously, like not looking straight at you, but you see her kind of out of the corner of her eye just look at you and then look back and then look at you and then look back. But you step inside. Wallace says, "All right, folk. Well, I mean, I appreciate you, coming to visit our little town here, but looks like Sheriff Isaac isn't in. So let me go find him. If you would, just stay right here, and I'll go get him and bring him on back, and I guess we can see what all this business is about a bank robbery." So.
All right. Thank you.
So he turns and kind of heads his way out. You see him turn to the right this time, towards the north. What are you guys doing?
After Wallace leaves enough, I am going to actually sneak out behind the jail and go to the wall, the outside of Mammy's cell, or not Mammy, Eddie's cell, and use my bracer for mending and fix that wall so she can't fucking kick it out, hopefully.
Okay. Okay. All right, roll a stealth on Ketis. When you look down at your bracer, by the way, as you're kind of having this plan kind of forming in your head, you look down at your bracer and you see that the rune for Dispel Magic that you had charged or dispelled earlier, that rune is filled again.
I didn't hear that, G.
The rune is filled again. It's like the rune for Dispel Magic is full.
Okay.
It looks like the bracer resets as well. Your spell slots may not, but the bracers look to.
Okay, awesome.
So you rolled a natural 20. So yeah, you kind of look over there, and he's still close by. Wallace hasn't even gotten that far away. But you just kind of dart carefully around the corner and just running on tiptoes, run your way around to the back, and are standing outside, and getting ready to mend the wall there. What are Peter and Navarra doing?
Oh, he started walking to the north, you said?
He's walking. Basically, that's why, Ketis' stealth roll was important, is because he would have been in full view the entire time. But he's walking off towards the north, which is towards that judge's manor, the big 2-story banner that the clock tower keeps falling into at the end of the loops.
About how far away is the church from here?
The temple?
Yeah, temple, sorry.
It's probably 150 yards out of town to the west. It's out in the grass. That area, the discolored area on the map that you can see, that's all grass.
All right. Am I able to sneak just south of number 6 under the bank and go out that way?
Meaning, cross the road and head out that direction?
Yeah, across the road and avoiding Wallace by going underneath the bank, south of the bank.
You can. So if you guys are going to split up regularly, it's fine, because obviously you'll need to gather information, but it makes things a lot harder. So just keep that in mind. Like, you guys can go together. Like, basically, if he's just mending the wall, then you guys could all go together if that was your plan. But basically what I'm saying is that if you just leave and not talked about it, then nobody else knows where you're going and that kind of stuff, which makes things harder then too. But presumably, unless you guys had other plans, you could all go together if that was what your goal was. Up to you guys what you want to do.
Well, I
at
think
least
what I'll
talk
do
about
right
it first
now.
would be ideal.
All right. Well, I'm going to take a sec real quick since we're all together. I'm going to just tell them everything that I figured out on that last run about the explosions, the bomb, the Gerblins, and all that stuff. So that way everyone's kind of aware that my JRBs and the cash are changed.
Okay. All right. So then we'll just, the portion of it, Ketis is outside. You've pressed the bracer, and you see the wall begin to stitch itself up. The crack on it's actually slightly too large that you can't fix it completely. I think it's a 1 square foot or 2 square foot or something like that, but it's fine. It looks like it's enough that it'll be solid. And you kind of stitch the dirt together with your mending. Go ahead and mark. Actually, never mind. You have unlimited uses of mending, so that's good.
Okay.
You step your way. Were you doing anything else out there, or were you going back inside?
No, and then I'm going to head back. Are you guys still inside the jail? I'm going to go back inside then.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the 3 of you are back in the jail then. Peter has shared what he saw in the quarry. You guys sharing your information back as well?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
especially about that purple worm.
Yeah.
Okay. That Navarra sensed that there's a massive purple worm underneath the town.
And I'm assuming that the vibrations from the explosions are probably what causes the big worm to come get everything, so got to try to stop Eddie from blowing shit up. So,
It's
just an estimation. But...
Yeah, it's a potential theory, sure. So, all right, so you guys have kind of shared your knowledge back and forth, and you're all back in the jail. So tell me what the plan is, what you guys want to do.
You can take lead on this one, Ketis, if you want. We can go somewhere you want.
Okay. Well, I always forget half the shit, so what else is important that we need to try to take care of before Wallace gets back? We try
Well-
to stay on his good side as much as we can this time.
Well, I mean, because you didn't convince. I'll give this as somewhat of a hint too. Because you didn't convince him to just let you run around town, which that's a possibility. Remember, you don't have to come to the jail every time. But because you didn't convince him to let you run around town, if he sees you, he's going to try to get you to go back to the jail and stop, running around. But he does trust you a little bit better this time, so maybe you can just talk your way through that then too. Anyway, as far as if you're not sure where to go next, where you should go is Mammy's hut, which is north of town.
Should we do that, guys?
That's up to you guys. I'm just saying, that's basically if you don't know where to go next, that would be a good place for you to start, because she can give you kind of a direction.
I'm down.
So you're gonna head out that
Let's
way?
do it.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm down. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you guys peek your head out the front door, looking around. You don't see Wallace anymore. So what are you doing?
Just try to scoot up there as quick as we can.
Okay. Are you trying to be like sneaky about it? Or are you just gonna walk, as if you belong here up to there?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to seem out of place, but try to keep an eye out for Wallace. Hopefully he doesn't see us.
Okay. All right. I won't bother with this stealth roll then. If you're, if you're trying to look in place, then it probably wouldn't matter too much, and you don't see Wallace at the moment, anyways. Where you're heading is basically past the giant manor, up to it's hard to see on the map. It's a number 13. It's basically up in the woods up here. You see it to the west of the lake there. You see what I'm talking about? The hut in the
Yeah.
woods. So you're kind of making your way there. The woods are I say woods, but it's basically a thin collection of dead trees. So there isn't really a lot of, you can see straight into the middle of town from here. There's barely anything, there's not a lot of coverage. The trees are mostly dead, so there isn't a ton of foliage or shade here. And you can see this hut, before you even leave the road, before you head out there. And from a distance, actually, as you start getting, basically rounding the back of the giant manor there, there's a smell wafting over from the hut that is instantly just comforting and warm and pleasant. It's the smell of baking bread or pastries of some kind, like somebody baking something that smells really good, coming from that hut in the middle of town there. The hut itself looks pretty ramshackle, and as you're starting to get a little closer, you see that it's barely, it's almost a lean-to. Like it looks like it's not much is holding it up. It doesn't look to be very sturdy. And you hear what sounds like an old woman singing as you start getting a little bit closer on the inside, like just top of her lungs. Just seems like she's having a good time, just singing and presumably baking. And you kind of make your way up there. There's this thin panel door that looks like it's barely a sheet of thin wood. No windows or anything like that. And the door looks like it's barely held in place. Like if there was a breeze on the inside, like a fan or anything, the door would blow right open. There's almost nothing holding it shut. What are you guys doing?
Go in and
Knock on the door.
yeah, or knock. Yeah.
Try not to knock the hut over.
So close enough, actually. When you knock on the door, the door, when you knock against it, it bangs against the frame and pops right open, and then you knock again and it closes it and pops right back open. Like that's how flimsy this whole thing is. But you kind of rap on the outside of the door, and you hear that old woman, the singing, stop, and it's silent for just a brief second, and then she says, "Who is it?" There's some trepidation in her voice.
I guess we'll just tell them that we're friends of what's his name with the guitar.
Walt? Oh, what was his name?
You didn't ask his name. Nobody ever did. You guys are really bad about introducing yourself, so I'm not gonna give you names if you didn't ask for them.
I guess we could just say that
We're
Vigil with the
friends
guitar.
boy in the guitar in the saloon.
Yeah, the really dorky looking kid.
He says Jasper. You friends of Jasper? And then you hear that. Then the door swings out, and it swings outward too, which is all the houses here in town, everything seems to, all the doors swing inward, which is normal. But this, little lean-to place, there probably wouldn't be room inside. It's so small for the door to swing in, so it swings out towards you, like a trailer almost. But it swings out towards you, and you see an older woman. One eye is kind of a milky white color. She doesn't smell like she's bathed, very often, which is somewhat normal for the folk here in town. But very, very gnarled, very kind of if you would take what you expect like the traditional stereotype of a witch to look like, but if you took that and just made her look like a nice old grandma, that still has the same features. It has a couple of growths that you would probably want a doctor to look at on her face, with hair coming out of them and that kind of stuff, but has just a very sweet smile, and kind of a very happy little crone almost look to her. She says, well, I mean, friends of Jasper, I suppose I can do what I can to help. What you guys need? What can I help you with?
Just, what?
We're looking for a spear.
Yeah.
Spear? I don't know about no spear. I mean, is there any more about it? I don't know. I mean, I gotta say, I'm not in town too much. I mostly keep to myself out here, but I mean, I can. Well, I suppose if you know Jasper, I mean, I'm known a little bit for kind of helping point people in the right direction, and if that's what you're looking for, I can. She's kind of tilting her head to one side a little bit in a very cautious but polite kind of a way, like she wants to help, but doesn't necessarily know whether to trust you guys or not. She says, I mean, if you need some help, kind of getting pointed in the right direction, I can probably do that for you.
That would be great.
She says, well, all right, sweetie. I mean, it's there's not a lot of room in here, but come on in. And she kind of beckons you guys inside. You go in?
Yeah.
Yep.
It is blaringly hot inside. There is an oven to one side, which is probably the only thing, as you guys look at this, it's probably the only thing that's keeping this whole hut standing, because it has it's basically a brick fireplace, basically, that she's got, that she's using essentially as an oven, and that brick is the only sturdy thing here. Everything else is kind of leaned against it almost. But basically there's that, and that's kind of the centerpiece for this one room little shack. And her bed is off to one side, smells terrible, but the smell of the baking and everything in the room is kind of covering most of it. And then off to the other side, you see a very small round table with two chairs, one on one side that she obviously uses, and then the other one, which looks like it's doesn't get as much use, but doesn't have cushions or anything like that. It's basically kind of a plain wooden chair that looks like maybe that's where she does her divining. Roll. Actually, you know what, Peter, you wouldn't even need to roll for this. You do immediately recognize the trappings of a diviner. You see a stack of cards there. The topmost is the tower. You recognize this as being similar to what tarot cards are. And it's a style of divination that you don't personally practice, but something you're very familiar with. You have used in the past. It's just not your preferred method of kind of divining. But she does have a stack of cards there, and then along that one wall next to that, above basically where this table is, there is a series of thin string, almost like what would look like a lute, like a harp, string after string after string of varying lengths, and at the end of each of these strings is a blue crystal. They don't look to be anything special, and they don't look necessarily valuable, but there is a crystal hanging at the end of each of these strings, of varying sizes. Some are larger, some are small. She says, well, I guess, do you all need to go? Like, do one of you go in first? I mean, who needs the most information? Who needs the most help?
What do you want to ask her?
She's motioning to the chair, so that, whoever wants to ask the question first would sit in the chair.
I guess that's me.
She says, all right, well, I mean, we can go ahead and have a seat, but, before we get into this, I know I don't recognize you folks, so I assume you're from out of town, but not to be rude, but these things they're not free for me. They take a lot of effort for me to do this, and I know diamonds don't have much value these days, but I still, just to kind of buy these to replace the materials I need to be able to do this, I got to charge these. So generally, again, I don't mean to sound crass. I don't mean to sound not welcoming. I'm happy to have new visitors here in town, but it's still, a big prophecy will cost you 10 diamonds, and a small one will cost you 1 diamond. So is that something you guys have? I mean, or if you don't, maybe there's something, you can trade that I can use to replace these crystals as I use them.
Only gems, or?
Well, I mean, we don't really, here in town, we don't have a lot of use for money these days. But what little we do, we mostly just use these diamonds because it's what we, pulled up out of the mine. Gold and silver, they don't really mean much for us these days.
So,
Do you
I
take
guess,
jars of bees?
How much would a jar of bees buy me? She kind of chuckles. She says, "Jar of bees? How'd you come by that?"
You never know when you're gonna need a jar of bees. Just keep one on hand.
She says, "I don't know, friend. I mean, I keep my own bees outside just for the honey that I use for my pastries and stuff. But I don't know if I got much use for a jar of bees. That sounds almost cruel." What's the plan? What do you guys
All
do?
right. I guess. Well, you got those diamonds last time by playing cards with that guy, right, Peter?
Yeah, like the diamonds are gone now.
Yeah. So,
Well, because
Could we-
you successfully did that, that was kind of the idea, basically, is that if you could get yourself in the same situation and that person still happens to be there, say Edwin may not stay in the saloon the whole time. You don't really know. You've only been in there the one time. And by the time you get there, he could potentially be gone, but let's just say that he is there, then we could fast forward through that in the checks that you already made and that you did win that hand and so on. Unless other factors have changed that might make, specific details different, in which case I might make you re-roll for stuff. But, in this particular case, let's say that if you, presumably if you were to get there in time, he's still there and you can deal that same hand because you have kind of a rapport with him and that you were both from the Dire Howls, that you presumably could just win that, get those 11 diamonds, make your way back here, etc. Does that make sense?
try if you guys want.
Really have a choice.
Yeah,
now.
it makes
Everything
sense. You're kind of
triggered.
cutting out, but I get it.
I probably should have restarted because my network was acting up yesterday. It's been fine today so far, but normally I do restart everything before the game, and I just didn't get to it today, so I'll make sure to do it next time. Anyway,
Yeah, so we can head over to the saloon if you guys want. See if we can catch that guy.
okay, is everybody going or just Peter?
Yeah, we'll go.
Might as well tag along.
Well, Mammy says, okay, well, I mean, I guess once you've got, the diamonds or something, that you want to trade or whatever, you just come on back and Mammy will take good care of you. She says, before you go, she kind of, she picks up a basket with a cloth wrapped over it. And she kind of she lifts the cloth up and grabs something out of this and kind of holds it out to each of you, handing each of you this still like very warm to the touch, almost hot to the touch, and so much so that you almost don't want to hold it because of how warm it is in this place anyways. But she hands each of you a honeyed roll that smells just delicious. It's just I never let folk leave empty-handed. I bake all this stuff and I end up throwing so much of it away. You might as well have yourself one. So here you go.
Thank you.
Okay, so you guys make your way back towards the town. You got to pretty much go almost the whole distance back to the middle of town. Are you just walking through? Are you trying to be sneaky about it? Are you going in any particular direction, or just right down Main Street?
Yeah, maybe not straight down Main Street. Kind of go around a little bit. Stay away from Wallace if we can.
Wallace still might be at the judges. I
Where
think
you
just
going?
kind of sneak around the bank kind of thing, right?
Right in the back,
Okay.
behind the bank and behind the clock tower, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Do it.
Okay, roll. We'll just use the average. All three of you roll a stealth check. I'll just average it out.
I'm sorry. Roll what? You cut
Stealth
out.
check. Okay, so Ben and Becky, you guys hearing me clearly, or am I cutting out for you guys too?
You do cut out a little bit too.
Yeah.
Okay, it might be my mic sensitivity. Does it sound robotic at any point, or is it just me cutting out?
Yeah, it's just going out. There's no robotic.
Okay, I'm probably either not talking loud enough or my mic sensitivity is too low. So let me try turning that up a little bit. See if that helps any. You guys, yeah, I'm not sure if cutting out would help that actually. Hang on one second. All right, how's that sound? Is that any different at all? Still the same or any different?
All I heard was how, and then it cut out.
Yeah.
All right, so I adjusted my mic sensitivity, but I'm not sure if it's network then, because I moved it up by 25%, so it should have made a difference. Okay, let me try this. How about now? Any difference, or is it still the same? I turned the music off, obviously.
You haven't cut out yet. You're good now.
Okay. I probably just needed to restart my network. That's what I'm guessing. Okay, we'll go like that for a bit. See if that clears up a little bit. All right, your stealth rolls. Yeah, that's plenty. Okay, so you guys, you sneak in behind it. Roll a perception on Nivara.
You said perception?
Yep. It's funny, we get Ben and Becky's working fine, and then mine starts fucking up. That's perfect irony.
Yeah, well, still not nearly as bad though.
That's good. No.
What's that?
I thought I got it in the tower. Nothing popped up.
I don't see it yet.
Are you lagging, honey?
I don't know. I must be.
Just try it again, because I haven't seen anything yet. If my network is acting up, which, like I said, it was yesterday, then because you guys are having to connect back to me, so if mine is acting up, I may need to restart. What's that?
I think we were lagging a little bit on our end because the
Yeah, I've done it like 3 times now and it's
Yeah.
still not popping up.
Let me try real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Sako. Yeah, that popped up. I'm guessing my network's still acting up, though, because it had been yesterday, and if it was the server...
You're
What's
cutting out like every word.
Okay. Let's do this. It'll take probably 10 minutes or so for it to all come back up. So everybody, can you hear me okay? Oh, shit. I can see actually Discord's not even picking me up. Okay.
Yeah, on my end, when you speak, it just looks like you take your finger off the button and then keep talking, and then put your finger back on.
Yeah, and I'm not even using push to talk, so it's actually like Discord's not even picking me up. I'm gonna restart real quick. So I'll restart the network and everything too. It'll take probably 10 minutes for everything to come back up. So just take a quick break, everybody. I should have done it before the game, so sorry, everybody. But we'll get back on real quick.
no problem.
All right.